Music driven noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Blunt Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangle rise. Steampunk Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hello and happy Thursday to everybody, except for the ones that appreciate that celebrate murdering American citizens on the sidewalks of Minneapolis. I was watching something just a few minutes ago. I don't really have anything covered on this, but Tom Homan was talking about how he had seen lots of he had buried lots of Border Patrol officers and ICE agents, kind of giving the impression and saying that you know, like, these people were like gave their lives in defense of the country or something. And, you know, I mean, technically they died in the line of duty. Like a third of them died of COVID. A lot of them died in car accidents. And there's 2 ICE agents that have been murdered in the last 20 years since ICE formed ever. Only 2 that have been killed by illegal immigrants since ICE was formed. And there's like 7 Border Patrol agents that have been killed since 2003. So that's 22 years. And of course, you know, like, anytime anybody gets murdered, it's bad, right? It's sad, but it's hardly fair to make it sound like there's this war between ICE and illegal immigrants, and these protesters are just out there protesting for no reason, and they're just getting in the way and stuff. You know, we had as many citizens die as they've had ICE agents die. So, you know, just in the interest of being fair there, we should probably factor that into things. How's everybody doing? Anybody have anything they wanted to talk about today? Go ahead and drop a comment if you do. I got a little distracted last night, and I started having some fun. And I thought I would share my fun with you on the show today. I made a few songs. The lyrics are kind of mostly me, but I kind of rounded out by AI a little bit, and then the music was AI. So I wrote a Stephen Miller song, a Christy Noem song, and a Marco Rubio song. So I'll drop them kind of not all at the same time, but I'll scatter them through the show. We'll start with the Stephen Miller song. Let's see what you guys think.
Prefer the darkness that I'm living in, but I prefer the darkness that I'm living in. Miller time, baby. Look at the hairline receding like the tides of peace. I'm drafting policies while I feast on the deceased. Pale skin glowing in the monitor light, writing executive orders in the middle of the night. Got a coffin in the office where I take my nap. Bloodless bureaucracy, I put the DC on the map. They call me Nosferatu in a cheap blue suit. Only drain the hope, yeah, that's my forbidden fruit. I'm a vampire Nazi, can't you see the signs? Check the widow's peak and the hardline designs. Sucking out the soul of the land of the free. Ain't nobody colder in the West Wing than me. Vampire Nazi, yeah, I live forever. Cruelty is the point, ain't I clever? I don't need garlic to keep the folks away. Just a glare from my eyes turns the sky to gray. Spray on hair, but the hate is organic, causing mass hysteria. I feed on the panic. Immortality is boring without a little power trip. Got the immigration files in a tighten grip. Transylvania politics, American style. Signing deportation papers with a blood red smile. I'm a vampire Nazi, can't you see the signs? Check the widow's peak and the hardline designs. Sucking out the soul of the land of the free. Ain't nobody colder in the West Wing than me. Vampire Nazi, yeah, I live forever. Cruelty is the point, ain't I clever? I never sleep. I just hang upside down in the briefing room. Waiting, watching, my reflection doesn't show in the polls. But my influence, oh, it tolls for thee. I'm a vampire Nazi, can't you see the signs? Check the widow's peak and the hardline designs. Sucking out the soul of the land of the free. Ain't nobody colder in the West Wing than me. Vampire Nazi, yeah, I live forever. Cruelty is the point, ain't I clever? I never sleep. I just hang upside down in the briefing room. Waiting, watching, my reflection doesn't show in the polls. But my influence, oh, it tolls for thee.
So that's Vampire Nazi by Stephen Miller. Let me know what you think. I wanted to show another video here. This one is not created by me. This is, I want to make sure I'm
2025, I was confronted by ICE agents on my July 10th, 2025, I was confronted by ICE agents on my way to work. I want you to understand exactly what that looked like. Not because I want sympathy, but because it exposes a crack in the law that must be fixed. I was driving to my job as a security guard at a licensed farm in Camarillo, California. Federal immigration agents were lined across the road leading to the farm. I identified myself as a U.S. citizen and a veteran, but that didn't matter. Agents smashed my window, sprayed tear gas and pepper spray into my car, dragged me out. I was choking on gas, unable to breathe, while officers shouted conflicting commands even after I complied. They pinned me down, one kneeling on my back and another kneeling on my neck, while my hands were already behind me. I was first taken to a Navy base where agents collected my DNA, and after that, I was taken to a detention center and held for 3 days without charges. No phone call, no lawyer, no medical care, even though my skin burned from the chemicals. I wasn't allowed to shower.
So why is that? He was just going to work. You know, it's like I keep hearing from the MAGAs that these are all people, they're agitators, right? That's the new word, agitators. Only agitator I know is in my washing machine, or in my washing. Well, I don't even know if you have an upright washing machine. My old washing machine had an agitator. What is an agitator anyway? What's the difference between an agitator and a protester? A protester is somebody you agree with, and an agitator is somebody you disagree with. Like, this whole word agitators is just starting to aggravate me. It's a way of discounting somebody as a legitimate protester. So it's like you've got agitators and paid protesters and paid agitators now, I guess, you know. I don't know if there's like if there's like a hierarchy there, like if you start off as a paid protester and you move up to paid agitator as you get better at agitating. I don't know what makes somebody an agitator instead of a protester. They might be trying to distinguish between a legal observer and a protester, which they have definitely confused those two things. Presti was a legal observer. He wasn't a protester. He wasn't at a protest. Protest is a thing where a bunch of people come together and they protest. A legal observer is somebody that watches what law enforcement does to make sure they're not breaking any laws. Both are protected by free speech. Alexander, how you doing, Alexander? Thanks for joining. They want to call anyone resisting tyranny a paid actor to discredit them. Classic totalitarian regime. move. And it's exactly 100% right. This is their goal, is to discredit the protest, because then when they kill the protester, it makes it okay. Then they do this, like there's this new video from 11 days ago where Alex Presti like kicks out a taillight or something, and they're saying, see? And it's like, see what? I don't see anything in that video that made him a threat to the law enforcement officers that killed him. They keep trying to redefine the conversation. They tried to redefine it about Renee Good. Oh, she was trying to run him over. Then why was she trying to turn away from him? And then they sped up the video of the car leaving to make it look like she was like stamping on the accelerator. I mean, when you have to lie to make your point's a lie. You understand that. All they're here for is to start trouble, man. Holly's ICE agents need to go. Okay. Oh, all that ICE is here for is to cause trouble. You're right. I've got a whole slideshow I'm going to go over on exactly what the real thing is. Because today, I haven't even talked about what I want to talk about today. Today, the real story, the thing that we need to start talking about more. And just in case you didn't know, I think it's March 28th. There's another New Kings protest scheduled. Make sure you circle that on your calendar. Make sure you make the time available. And as I was saying the time before, if you do not have, not everybody has the energy to go in March. Not everybody has the physical capacity to do that. You know, some people are older and some people are, have disabilities. So there are people that would like to protest but can't. All right. So if you can drive your car, here's what you can do. The people that are marching, the people that are protesting, they need food and water. So what you do is you go to the protest, put some food and water in your car, hand out snacks, hand out bottles of water. You know, make sure it's, nothing you baked at home or anything, just so that everybody knows everybody's safe. But, buy a bunch of Snickers bars and water bottles. Hand them out to the protesters as they're walking by. Give everybody a little sustenance. You can participate in the protest even if you can't physically march with everybody. But we need to just keep letting Trump know that this is our country too. He's not the only one that's allowed to have an opinion here. They make it seem like owning the libs is some sort of political win. Like, oh, if we get offended, that means they're right. Well, no, that's not the way it works. You guys ran around screaming, "Let's go, Brandon," for 4 years. We're not going to quit. We're not going to go home. We're not just going to hand over our country to a fat orange tyrant. Doing good. Oh, greeting from Norway. Awesome. Why didn't you guys give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, Alexander? No, I'm joking. Did you see he wrote the president of Norway? Do you guys have a president or prime minister? You probably have a prime minister, right? I don't know if he knows who he wrote to. Anyway, he wrote to Norway, the government of Norway, demanding that since he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, he deserves Greenland. Like, I don't know how stupid that is. How do you guys do you guys look at us? Because I know Norway is like one of the nicest places to live in terms of just like education and healthcare and income, and like you guys have vacations and stuff like that. Do you guys just look at us and just go, do you feel sorry for us? Or I genuinely wonder. Like and subscribe. Yes, please do. Thank you. And if you're new to the channel, you can go ahead and punch that subscribe button. I guess I won't be getting into the U.S. for vacation purposes anytime soon with my recent comments on social platforms. My dad lives in Brazil with his wife, who is Brazilian, and they haven't been here since he won. They're not coming again. They used to come every summer and stay for like a month, and it was like just awesome. Now he's closing on it. His next birthday is going to be his 80th. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. You know, I mean, I hope he lives longer than Trump does, because then then I might be able to see him again. But I miss my dad. But his wife is just too afraid to come here. Take an IFAK, not a gun. Dude, what does that even mean? I don't even know what an IFAK is, but what do you mean? Like you shouldn't bring guns to protests? Is that what you're saying? I am not a fan of what's going on. Europe is looking away from the U.S. for weapons deals and signing trade agreements with Asia. Hopefully the damage by Trump can be repaired. It's going to take a while. I lived in Europe twice. I lived in England for 3 years when I was a kid, and I lived in Italy for 2 years when I was in the military. I got around. Never got to Norway. I think I got to, I guess Switzerland would be as close as I came, or Sweden. Which one is Sweden's probably closer. I think Trump has turned into a big dictator. He is. I mean, it and we're going to go into this, like this whole thing about all of this is just about getting ballots. Not ours to give, right? It's given by a private committee, right? Like there's a board or something. Let's go, Brandon, Prime Minister. Hello from the moon. Hey there. I like the hair. Hey, yo. Hey, Mac Truck 6666. How you doing today? Thanks for joining again. Mac Truck, do I just know you from Twitch? Because you're kind of like, I'm still got a fairly new Twitch thing. Are you on Blue Sky or Twitter too? Do you? Because I only have like 9 followers on Twitch right now. It's a scripted funded color revolution. What is the scripted funded color revolution? What is that? What does that mean? I don't understand what that means. What's the square kilometer per resident in Norway? That is a question that I don't know off the top of my head, but the Alexander might, or at least he might be able to look it up. Anybody can look it up. Well, your dad is wrong for that. Well, are you married? Anybody that's ever married is not going to drag his wife to a country where she could get like thrown into prison for not being from that country. And not just because he's afraid of that happening. He's afraid of that I don't blame him. Put it that way. The U.S. got to buy the Virgin Islands among those islands at St. Andrews in exchange for Denmark getting exclusive rights to Greenland. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. Interesting. I did not know that. Guess we wanted the nicer climate. That's cool that you know that. That's actually interesting. I wonder. That's like sometimes there's things that are going on, and I just wish that the U.S. media would do a better job of informing people of just like basic things. Like today in the press conference, they were talking about, Homan was talking about how, he'd be willing to work with Minnesota just to get the released felons, like have them detained until ICE can come get them. And the thing is the state of Minnesota has always been doing that. The problem is ICE hasn't always been coming to get them. And you can only hold them for up to 2 days after their sentence is over. And so if ICE doesn't show up within 2 days, you have to let them go. They've served their time. and states don't have the individual capacity to deport people. So all they can do is let ICE know, and then ICE can, ask them to detain them and then come get them. But ICE has not been doing that, and it's not exclusive to Minnesota. In fact, the number of people that are in that category in Minnesota is relatively small compared to some other states in the country. And the overall number is like 1.5 million people right now that are, kind of this kind of holdover. And of those 1.5 million, like 2,000 of them are in Minnesota. So I don't know why they're making a big deal about Minnesota. Well, I do, but we'll get into that in a minute. I just think it's interesting that the media doesn't explain what the basic core principles of these people are. They're like, I had to go in and research to find out, like, because anybody with a reasonable mind would go, why are convicted felons walking around on the streets that are illegal aliens? Like, I don't think I've never heard anybody say, yeah, that convicted murderer should be walking around on the streets. But that's why once their penalty is done, they have to let them go. That's and ICE doesn't come, then they can't do anything. Good evening from Europe. Another European. Wow. I'm like the most popular left-leaning liberal show on YouTube in Europe right now. I'm sort of joking because I'm probably the only one. But thanks for joining. Where in Europe are you at? We've got a Norwegian, and where are you at? I'm gonna guess Scotland. John Kelly, the Trump's White House longest serving chief of staff, said he believed that Donald Trump met the definition of a fascist. Yes, he did. And then they asked him what he meant by that, and he got really specific and really accurate in his specificity. I was in the military. I was in the military from 1986 to 1990. First assignment was at Lackland Air Force Base, which is also where you do the training. And then the second assignment was in San Vito Air Station in San Vito, Italy. It's over by Brindisi and Bari. Lackland was kind of interesting because nobody wants to go to Lackland for their first assignment, because that's like the only base where you go for basic training. But once I got there, and they were like, I was living in the dorms, and they had these like you'd have 3 dorms together, and then in the middle of those 3 dorms, they had these sand pits that with volleyball nets and everything. And so you kind of got to know all the people in the dorms around you. And one of the dorms next to me was where the TIs stayed. And so in the Air Force, we called them training instructors. And so we just sit there and get to know them and everything. And they used to do this thing where, like, you're in basic training and they'd like yell at you. Like, if you ever saw the which movie is it, Hamburger Hill or something, where the TI is the drill instructor is yelling and he's like funny. And they would practice their material on each other. And the whole idea is they would try to yell at you and make you afraid, but laugh at the same time, because they were actually pretty funny. One I even knew one TI that went on to become a professional comic. But anyway, that was Lackland. San Vito was awesome. I loved San Vito. One of my favorite places I ever lived. I was in Sweden last week, company event. It's so pretty up there. We in Europe are building new agreements. And that's, I think the first time a lot of other countries and people in other countries were like, okay, mistakes happen. You guys accidentally elected an idiot. We'll let it slide. And then Biden came along and everybody's like, okay, now we're back to normal. And then Trump got reelected and it's even worse. And now it's like, Europe's like, no, we just can't deal with this crap. You know, we have our own countries to run, and you've got Marco Rubio yesterday sitting there testifying about how much defense money Europe has to spend and stuff like that. And it's just like, you know, other countries are autonomous and get to decide their own budgets. You don't get to decide how they spend their money. The head of the snake needs to go, and the rest of the snake needs to go too. The whole Trump administration is all just one giant snake. ISAIM is pretty good, huh? Well, I mean, we haven't really tested that, have we? Because it takes 7 of them to shoot one unarmed man or one unarmed woman. Like, it's hardly a test of courage and skill. What is the topic here? We are going to be talking about how Donald Trump is using the situation in both Georgia and Minnesota to steal the election in 2026 shortly. What conspiracy has recently become not conspiracy that we might talk about? There has been no conspiracy that's recently become a not conspiracy. There's just another conspiracy wrapped around one conspiracy, if you're talking about Georgia. But there's no new evidence in Georgia that proves anything. Treaty from 1916 that Trump denies. Trump denies anything that doesn't have his name on it. Trump will pardon Diddy. He probably will, but only after Diddy pays him. I don't think it's only racists. I think a lot of black people that aren't racists think Diddy should be locked up. I think a lot of his victims think he should be locked up. Okay. So we do ban people here if they're just here to be trolls. Just that's your warning. That's it. I think Trump wanting to bring ICE with him to the Italian Winter Olympics tells us that we need to know about Trump treating them as his personal army. I was thinking about there's an irony here, because since you're not in Europe, you may not be aware of this, but every time there's some sort of weather tragedy that besets the United States, like there's a hurricane or something, then there will be hang on, I'm getting rid of this troll. Every time there's a weather tragedy of some sort, then right-wing people like blame it on gays and lesbians and say that God is judging us because of the gays and the lesbians. And I just think it's funny that when God literally judges us with ICE, while ICE is besetting our streets and murdering our citizens, nobody thinks that maybe God is trying to like punish us when it's when the line is like one dot to another dot. You don't even have to gyrate to find it out. Oh, Germany. I've been around in Germany. I was TDY in Wiesbaden for a bit. And yeah, I've been around Germany. I love it. Bonn's a beautiful city. Is theft okay? We'll talk about that in a minute. No, theft is not okay, but we'll talk about that. Are you okay with theft when other states do it? Originally from Scotland, but dual nationality, either Germany. I have not been to Scotland. I lived in England for 3 years, but I don't know how my parents never got me to Scotland. We got all over Europe. I think weirdly, in Western Europe, unless you can, like, I don't know if, like, I haven't been up to the Norway area, and I haven't been to Spain, but I've been to every other country in Western Europe. I landed in Portugal and we got laid over there. So I stayed like a day there, but yeah, I've been to most of Europe. I really, really like it there. I think that most Americans have no idea what Europe is like. When I hear them talk about it, it's just like, dude, you need to travel. Some idiot said, "God bless ICE," while this Gestapo is murdering American citizens and tear gassing preschools. I think that's the guy that is now no longer a part of this chat and never will be again. Project 2025 is essentially the Germans' 1930s politics for dummies. There are so many comparisons. And it's like, and people will say, "Oh, well, we haven't killed 6 million Jews." And it's just like, yet. I mean, and it's like, if not killing 6 million Jews is your bar, then your bar is a little too low. Do we have a common shared sense of morals? I would like to really have that discussion with you, because I think we should, right? But who defines what that shared sense is? Like, do you think that children should be taken away from their parents? Military is but it can also, a fire can be like, the military is either necessary or it's evil. It doesn't have to be a necessary evil. Like, and it's up to each country and each nation to determine for itself what the military's role should be. Europeans need to come to grips with the fact that they're irrelevant. But that's not a fact. The thing is, Pablo, you need to come to grips with the fact that the rest of the world does not exist to make America first. Yes, Biden was normal. Yes, the one that you call Dementia Joe while you're sitting there advocating for the guy who can't even remember the name of the drug dealer he pardoned. Sweden makes the best AA Bofors. And oh, did I say that right? Sweden is I was only 10 when I was there, so I don't remember too much about the alcohol. Trump is seeming increasingly confused. There should be an age limit. I that would require a constitutional amendment. But what I've been thinking is that you shouldn't have to, but it should become a tradition. You take the citizenship test, the same test that immigrants take on, like that shares what our basic civics are. You should take that test and then have your test results publicized, because that's like a competency test for running the government, right? If you don't even know how the government works, you shouldn't be running it. And Donald Trump, I don't think he has the vaguest clue of how it works. The entire establishment government hates Trump, but somehow he will. Well, dude, you're not paying very much attention, are you? We'll talk about that. All right. Banning speech sounds fascist. Nobody's banning speech. Banning users from a channel. You can say whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want in my house. I also have a right to my own house, right? So if I wanted, I can't go to your house and just start screaming things. You have authority over your own surroundings. What did I eat for dinner last night? I had a turkey sandwich made on my homemade bread. I make my own bread from fresh milled flour, and it's just delicious. Man, all the MAGA idiots, the real Americans in the chat would be fine with that. All right, so we might move on to the second song here. Agreed about Bonn. I live nearby. Plus, my dad was RAF. Oh, best in West Berlin, as my dad was British military intelligence working with GCHQ and NSA. Ah. So I'm 58. Would I be about the same age as your dad? I don't know how old you are because you just look like a phone. I would eat a month of paychecks. That is a hell of I would bet a month of paychecks that Joe Biden is a hell of a lot more cognitive than Trump is. I promise you. Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Donald Trump, people think that just because Donald Trump says a lot of words, he says things. But the things he says, I mean, I never heard Joe Biden talk about how water ruins magnets or just a host of incredibly stupid things. Wow, over 100 countries, dude. I've been to 36, and I thought that was a lot. You must do traveling for like part of your job or something. I love traveling. I love going to different countries. You know, and my favorite thing to do when I go to a different country, let me know if you do this too, but at some point I got in the habit of everywhere I go, and it's like most countries are like the US where different regions have their own favorite food, but I always go and eat like whatever the comfort food is in that place. Usually it's cheap and it's yummy beyond belief. You know, so I don't always buy the most expensive thing on the menu. I buy the thing that the guy in town is going to buy. You know, if you go to England, you get fish and chips because that's what people in England eat, because that's like the only food in England that's good. Of course, when I was there, Indian food wasn't popular. Now I think it's butter chicken is the thing. At least the kids in the preschool will make hardened protesters. Yeah, sadly. Okay, but what does that mean? Criminals? Yes, I think if a parent is abusing their children, the children should be taken away. If that's what you're saying. Europe just made one of the biggest trade agreements with India, accounting for 1/5 of the world GDP. And Donald Trump has not said a thing about it. There's something called foreign investment. What is it? Foreign investment dollars or something. That's how much money does foreign country, is foreign investment in the United States in year to year. Of course, probably every country has something like that. But last year, there was the actual dollars invested in America went down, and he's talking about how we got, $9 trillion or $30 trillion or whatever. Okay, first of all, it's YOU''RE. But secondly, what if it's not America? Like if somebody is in Canada, should it be Canada first? Are they a patriot if they put Canada first? Because you're asking other countries to put America first. You can't ask people in Germany to put America first. They would put Germany first. Or people could just put humanity first and think that it's not a competition, and that if it's not a finite amount of goodness in the world, that everything you give to somebody else, you take away from yourself. Like, some people are capable of thinking beyond these kind of childish logic. The script of I prefer to think of it as the bad guys won the time war. What yeah, I mean, like, a lot of times putting America first means doing what's best for other places too. I was attacked in my own house with electromagnetic. Was it a 5G thing or? All right, so no, so yeah, you're so we're the same age, and our dads are the same age. Wow. So I was actually, I was in England from 74 to 77. And I lived in Liberia from 83 to 84, but briefly went to Germany to visit like our family went to go visit a family in Germany in winter or in Christmas of 83. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, so here, let me ask you a question. If undocumented immigrants that are, contributing to the United States, if that actually helps the country to have them here doing these jobs, which it does, according to like all kinds of studies, is it America first to deport them? If they are actually making America better and helping America, how does deporting them, how is that America first? Traveling has been part of my job. Yep. The comfort food where they have the biggest queues from locals. Yes. That's another thing. I will do this if I'm in I'm in Texas, right? And so if I go to somewhere I don't know, I'll be driving around. I'll look for where all the all the people that look like they work for a living. I'll look to see where they're going to eat, and I'll go there. Always go where the working man eats, because that's where you're going to get the best food. The only English food that's good, that's incorrect. Okay, it was a joke. But it's close. British fish and chips is really good. I will say that. People have been making excuses for Trump thinking he is playing 4D chess. He plays 4 dementia chess, when in reality, it's just the ramblings of a crazy person. If he wasn't born into wealth, he'd be spitting at people on a corner. Okay. All right. So I'm going to play, as I was saying yesterday, or at the beginning of the show, I got to goofing around yesterday, and I wrote some songs with some help from AI. It was a collaborative effort. This one is called, I'm just going to play these, a little bit here and there through the show. This is the second one. The first one was the Stephen Miller Vampire Nazi song. This one is the ode, or the Ballad of Christy Babbitt. Hope you like it.
There's a farm out in Dakota where the wind blows cold. A story about a puppy just a few months old. Cricket was a pointer, wild and full of play, but he ruined a hunt and had a real bad day. She dragged him to the gravel with a heart of stone. Said he was untrainable, better off alone. One shot echoed in the afternoon and night. She cleaned up the mess and she slept just fine that night. Yeah, she's tough as nails and cold as the clay. If you don't fall in line, you're in the way. From the backyard fence to the border wall, she doesn't lose sleep when the bodies fall. A trigger finger itching and a steady hand, ruling with iron over a promised land. It ain't just the dogs that she's looking at now. She's got a mean expression in her furrowed brow. Looking at the strangers crossing on the wire, talking about force and solving things you'll find. Says there's danger coming from the southern side, and there ain't no place for a soul to hide. Even folks in town better watch their tone, or they might end up in the pit alone. Yeah, she's tough as nails and cold as the clay. If you go out and out, more into it. From the backyard fence to the border wall, she doesn't lose sleep when the bodies fall. A tricky finger itching and a steady hand, ruling with iron over the promised land. She tough as nails, but cold as the clay. If you go out and out, more into it. Some call it cruel, she rode a while.
So that's it. That's the Ballad of Kristi Noem. I thought it was funny. Anyway, didn't get any reaction. So maybe these aren't as funny as I thought they were. So all right, we'll go on to something serious then. And we've kind of alluded to this a little bit a couple of times. And so now I'm gonna wait, oh. Why can't I get this? All right. Trying to figure out how to get this setting right. I'm not getting this setting the way I want it. All right. There, that's what I'm looking for. All right. Where's this? There. Good job. Should not have been that hard. Still trying to learn this thing. Just started doing this one recently. But I wanted to go through and talk about the whole Minnesota fraud thing. Because remember, the entire pretext of the ICE agents being sicked on the state of Minnesota is just 100% based on this notion that there's all this fraud in Minnesota that was based on this Nick Shirley video. And so we're going to talk about there was real fraud that started under Trump, by the way, and was prosecuted under Biden, by the way. And now then Nick Shirley went and to these daycare centers and wrongly accused them of being fraudulent, which has been debunked by independent news agencies and by the state of Minnesota, and by the fact that in spite of the fact that they've been there wrecking the city for over a month now, they haven't brought not a single new fraud charge against anything to do with any of those daycares. So I'm kind of guessing that they don't have, and they haven't even talked about it, much less not charged anybody. So Alexander knows more about U.S. history than 95% of MAGA does. So Minnesota fraud. This is the heavily politicized and targeted thing. So this is the part that's been established, that's been proven. And this is the part that was prosecuted under Biden. There was about $250 to $300 million, mostly from this Feeding Our Future thing. One person, Asha Farhan Hassan, he also, there was a $14 million autism fraud, was the next biggest one. And about 75 to 85 people have been charged across all the schemes. Of those, about all but 10 of them were of Somali descent. That doesn't mean that they were illegal aliens. That doesn't even mean that they're aliens. Most of those Somalis are not only citizens, they're not even naturalized citizens. They were born here. And just like every other ethnicity and nationality on earth, some of them commit crimes. So Trump being Trump has made it illegal to be a Somalian or a Somali. Estimated fraud in Medicaid programs. So now there's this new investigation thing that's going on where Thompson, who's the U.S. attorney overseeing it, said there's possibly $9 billion across 14 high-risk Medicaid programs over 7 years. So that's possibly up to over 7 years. So there's nothing definitive there, and that is the only source for anything that says it could be that high. The actual number that has been proven is closer to 350 million, not 9 billion. People will keep using this number 9 billion, and it's only one quip by one attorney as it could be this high. And we act like, oh, and of course, the way MAGA operates, now it's like at least $9 billion. And, the numbers keep going up. Actually, what we know for a fact is 350 million, maybe. And it's still a ton, but we'll get into that. And nobody is excusing any fraud at all. Like 1 million is too much. But that was already prosecuted. Nobody is saying we shouldn't prosecute it. What we're saying is that we shouldn't be running around the streets of Minnesota capping people in the side of the head over something that's already been prosecuted. So who is actually involved? Right about Rick Scott. And we're going to talk about the other frauds that have not gotten the media attention, that this is new fraud. So about 0.12% of Minnesota's Somali community is about 80 out of 63,192 people that were involved in the fraud. That's like if you go to like some motorcycle gang in, one of these cities that the motorcycle gangs live in. And so you get like, this motorcycle gang has 70, 80 people in it. And you just make the whole city, everybody in the city is a gangster, a motorcycle gangster. Just because they're white. Almost certainly not the 705 TPS holders Trump targeted. So there's one of the things that really makes me mad is when people say, oh, they should have thought about that when they came here. Well, when these TPS people came here, they came here legally. Then the legal status on which they came was stripped away from them. It's like if you tell somebody, you hand somebody a ticket on a flight, and then you get halfway home, halfway to where you're going, and you take away their ticket, and then you say, oh, you don't have a ticket, and so you throw them out of the airplane. That's the logic of what Trump is doing. They came here legally, and then you're taking away their legal status, and so you're throwing them out as though they did something wrong. But most of the people that are here, or most of the Somali people are not even here illegally. Most of the ones that were involved are actually, all of the ones that are involved are citizens. None of them are even immigrants. And in fact, only 23 out of the thousands of people they have arrested since sending everybody over here, only 23 Somalis are among the thousands of people they arrested. And we don't even know if those were if they were people that were here illegally, or if they were TPS people that he just stripped away their status and made them illegal. So and this is like devastating the city of Minneapolis. The economy of the city of Minneapolis. Approximately 80% of the immigrant-owned businesses along the key corridors closed in a single week. And not every immigrant-owned business is an illegally run business or run by illegal immigrants. There's a Lake Street business, which is really, if you're ever up there and you don't have Gestapo patrolling the streets, there's some really nice places to eat there for like really like decent prices. Lake Street businesses, it's a 6-mile corridor with 2,000 restaurants and shops experiencing 40 to 100% revenue drop. Sales have dropped 50 to 70% before Christmas, and many at zero revenue by mid-January. So the impact of these ICE raids is devastating on the entire metropolitan area, including, by the way, the 98.5% of people that are legal residents. Latin businesses in Northeast Minneapolis lost 50 to 80% of revenue, including the ones that were legal residents. I don't even want to look at the comment section because I know there's going to be MAGAs that are going, well, they shouldn't have been here illegally. 1/3 of Minnesota small businesses on the verge of collapse. Hang on. Economic disruption compared to this is comparable to what happened in COVID-19. But the federal government is not even reporting the damage that they're doing by this draconian thing that's all built on a lie. All of this is happening because of the pretext of this Somali fraud that isn't real. The Somali fraud that is real has already been convicted. All right, so hang on. I'm going to get back to this in a second. I'm just going to go through your comments and see how many of them are. Okay. Hey, Kitty. How you doing, buddy? I had to take my claws out for one person. Host, are you brainwashed? No, I am not, Vernon. Medicaid is just beginning of the tip of the iceberg. There's the daycare is obviously fake. There's transport. Okay, then prove it. What does murdering people on the citizens on the streets of Minnesota do to help that? None of the things they have done have proven any fraud. Like, this is just, this is what I was thinking about. This is my frustration with MAGAs. It's like, if you know how to do a magic trick and you watch them and they're like so duped and amazed by the MAGA trick, and you're like, no, you've got to watch his other hand, and then you point what the magician is doing in his other hand. And the MAGA's like, no, you've got to watch what's happening with his other hand. They're so hooked on the trick that if you show them how it works, then you're lying and you're fake news. Six have died in ICE custody in 2026, 32 in 2025. And that's the most since, I think it's the second most in the history of ICE. The first was when, like, the first year that ICE existed and there weren't procedures in place and stuff like that. And actually, even the number 32 is kind of low, because they'll do things like, as somebody is dying, they will ship them off to the emergency room. And then they're not in ICE custody when they're like last heartbeat, 2 minutes after they left, they weren't in ICE custody anymore. There's like another dozen like that. How does BLM impact the economy of what? I don't even understand what you think that question is supposed to mean. What a weird question. You're showing pure projection and repeating. Fixed news and Limax talking points. Dude, go away. Fixed news. I call it foul news, FAUX news. I don't think I'm the only one that does that, though. You love being a bootlicker. No. Yeah, and as we'll get into it in a second, it's not like the only place where there's ever been any fraud is Minnesota. Right. 23 Somalis. And we don't even know what they were arrested for. We just know that nobody's been charged with anything to do with fraud since this whole fiasco started. It was a political attack, which that's exactly right. And we know that because what's the thing they wanted? What's the thing they wanted? What is the thing Trump said? Give us your voter polls. What's the thing that Minnesota and Georgia have in common? It is that he's going after the votes. He doesn't need to worry about winning the 2026 election, because the 2026 election he's trying to steal. Seizing welfare fraud caused this. No, seizing welfare fraud did not cause this. We know this because I don't even know what seizing welfare fraud means, but I don't even think you know what welfare means, but you're talking about the fraud in Minnesota that was already prosecuted under Biden. Okay, so that happened under Biden. So that is not what caused this. Hey, Kelly, you're better than me that you will continue to argue with MAGA. Honestly, dude, I'm glad that today there's a better balance. Like the trolls. Thank you, Kitty, so much for filtering out the trolls. I've been like, sometimes I don't even want to, like, I was just dreading coming on today and having more reasonable people like you to like actually confirm reality is there and squares are square and circles are round. Like it just, I keep hoping that at some point, some MAGAs will go, geez, circles don't have angles. Trump only loves two things, himself and money. There's like, I wonder if he loves Melania. I don't think so. Vernon, I think he only loves Melania in the way that he thinks her attractiveness looks good on him. When she, you know, I mean, she's not, I'm not going to lie and say she's not a pretty woman, but as soon as she starts talking, the things that come out of her mouth ruin all that prettiness. Took you 4 tries to spell Norway with spell checker available. Your proof why Trump loves the end. That was funny. The Minneapolis mayor is in New York trying to stir up the same problems he has in his own city, telling them it's coming. Is Mayor Fry in Minneapolis? Because okay, to be clear, he is not in New York. And he's not trying to stir up anything. There's a mayor's conference going on in Washington, D.C., and he was in the mayor's conference in Washington, D.C., along with a lot of other mayors. That's why they're called mayor's conferences. And he's not trying to stir up anything, dude. The one that's trying to stir up stuff is the guy that's sending the ICE agents in. You're aware that there's something called the 10th Amendment, right? That what Donald Trump is doing there is, in fact, unconstitutional. Two. Well, one belongs to Department of Homeland Security. Guess what? Those are the only 2 murders in Minneapolis this year. So another way to frame it would be all of them. Normal people don't worship politicians. Normal people don't. That's one reason, like when people talk about, you know, fascists, the Democrats are fascists. And it's just like, we don't have it in us to be fascist. Because like the most essential part of fascism is this adherence to a father figure, the central figure. And honestly, we're too smart to like, I don't want to say we're too smart to be duped by that, but, and I'm not saying it's because we're liberal, we are this way. I am saying because we are this way, we are liberal. Like our independence and our thinking is why we're liberal. It's why, you know, literally the basis of being conservative versus liberal is whether, you know, conservative, you hold to the traditional. Liberal means you're straying from the traditional. You're willing to look at new things and think of different things. So, I mean, like, at least that's one and the most common definition of conservative versus liberal. It's when you talk about left versus right or whatever. But because of that, there is no liberal Donald Trump out there. You know, I think there are some that have there are some politicians that have grabbed some kind of following, but not a reverent following. Even Bernie Sanders never got that. Not in the way that Donald Trump does. He just says smart things that smart people look at and go, yeah, that's smart. But they don't. If Barry Sanders came out tomorrow and said, I don't believe in universal health care anymore, he'd lose all of his followers. You know, people follow Barry Sanders because he agrees with what they say, not because he agrees with what they think, not because they're looking to him to see what to think. And that's what Donald Trump is. Donald Trump says something and Republicans are all like, the MAGAs and the Trump supporters are all like, yeah, that's right. You had like 40% of MAGAs that were ready to get rid of the Second Amendment because of Alex Preddy. Wow. Did you mean to ban Joe the expat? I thought he was, and maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. And people, but nobody's calling easily people trolls. I mean, it's like, I go through all the comments. I can tell a troll when I see a troll. What happened to freedom of religion in the Constitution? Oh, hey, how you doing, Herbs? I want to do I'm going to do a slideshow on marijuana at some point. Did you know sanctuary cities are legal? No, I did not know that because they're not. Protecting, feeding, and giving health care to criminal illegal aliens is also a crime? No, I didn't know that because it's not true. What makes Democrats so special they can ignore the laws? Nothing. There are no laws. Did you know the 10th Amendment exists? All sanctuary cities do. Be clear. Let me I'm going to explain this to you one time. If you're still here, I'm explaining it to you one time. I hope you can understand it. What sanctuary cities do is they just do not hand over their law enforcement stuff, and they don't work for the federal government. They don't detain people on behalf of the federal government. The federal government cannot tell states how to run its own police force. That's all it is. You can voluntarily do it as a state, but the federal government cannot tell a state how to run itself. That's the whole point of the 10th Amendment. That's the whole point of federalism. And it's like, there's something that when you look at any kind of constitutional law and any kind of interpretation, you have to look at it as precedent. And so it's like, if you do this principle here, then that principle has to apply everywhere. Because in principle, then, if the federal government can tell the state government how to operate its forces in that way, then it can operate it in any way. It can do the same thing. So imagine if after January 6th, and then the Biden administration had commanded every single state police force and local police force to go after January 6th defendants and to use, to do it to the maximum, like had to force the entire the state police force to go after January 6th defendants and to cooperate in the manhunt. How do you think that Fox News would react to that? How would you react to that? But that's the same principle. And that's what I mean. You have to look at principles here. So if the federal government can tell the state how to use its police force, which is what you're advocating for, and you're just dressing it up by calling it sanctuary cities, that's all that means. Yeah, we can get rid of that guy. They had a bipartisan border bill ready to go in 2024, but Trump told Republicans not to vote for it. Tell us again that he really cares. He told them not to vote for it because it would have cost him the election. It would have looked good for the Democrats. So he says, what's your excuse for ignoring federal government enforces federal laws? That's it. I don't need an excuse. So let me get back to the best viewers, Stribu. I have a feeling that might not be somebody that's actually watching. Okay. I think she accidentally banned somebody, but sorry about that. Can you make a note of that one, Kitty, and I'll go back afterwards and I'll unban your other account, Chris. Sorry about that. I just right now while everything is going on, I have to go into my YouTube settings and figure out how to do that. Every city has criminals. And you know what? Most of the criminals are American. You know, there's this guy, his name is Donald Trump, that was talking about it, not getting away of the Second Amendment, but talking about like how you shouldn't have guns at protests. He was talking, if a Democrat president had said exactly word for word what Donald Trump said about Pretty carrying a gun, you guys would have gone out and bought 2.5 million AR-15s that day. Do you know around 70% of kids in high school can't read and are going outside to protest instead of learning? Well, why do you think that like it's not learning, Chris? First of all, okay, hang on. Let's address this one fallacy at a time. Is it true 70% of high schoolers can't read? Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and share this screen here. Let's address all of this. But we'll start with your premise. Is it true 70% of high schools? So at least I got my mistake out of the way. Okay. No, that's a significant exaggeration. Here's what actually happening with literacy. High school seniors, about 27% score below basic level in reading achievement. About 66% score below proficient level. 1/3 lack basic reading skills, according to the NAEP findings. But below proficient and below basic don't mean students literally can't read. These are grade level benchmarks for reading comprehension and analysis skills. What experts say. When PolitiFacts checked a similar claim from Senator Tommy Tuberville, who I doubt would pass the proficiency. Oh my goodness, Tommy Tuberville. That man's about as bright as an onion. Who said half the kids can't read their diploma. Literacy expert Timothy Shanahan from the University of Illinois Chicago explained the vast majority of high school seniors have basic literacy, the ability to read and understand simple messages. Only a small number of American graduates literally can't read simple text. The expectations are primarily students with severe cognitive, the exceptions are primarily students with severe cognitive deficits or recent immigrants with limited schooling. So that's first of all, your premise that 70% of kids in high school can't read. The second thing I want to point out is you're talking about literacy. And you ask the question, do you know around 70% of kids in high schoolers can't read and are going outside to protest instead of learning? All right. There are at least 5 or 6 grammatical errors in your question. And you're sitting there complaining about basic literacy. So you recognize the irony there, right? Like I would just read through it and move along if you weren't talking about literacy. If you weren't sitting there talking about how all these people that are protesting are illiterate. The third thing I would point out is what makes you think they're not learning? Actual protest is a real learning. When I was living in Liberia, when for some reason comes up a lot these days, but when I was living in Liberia, I remember when we went to, I was writing for the high school paper, and we had a field trip to go meet with the guy that ran the Liberian Free Press, and it was the only free press that was there, and it was run by a guy named Ken Best, and he was there that day, and he's like, "Oh, good, you caught me between beatings," because every time he wrote like an op-ed against the government or like some kind of editorial against the government, they'd come and they'd beat him, and then they'd let him go, and so he was just like, "Oh, you caught me between beatings." He was joking about it, and that I learned something, The man was a walking protest. And I learned something from that. Don't think that just because they're out there protesting, they're not learning. Don't think that they're not learning how their government functions. This is the greatest learning experience they might have had in their entire school years. "96% of all statistics are made up by morons." Abraham Lincoln. His source for that was the internet, by the way. Then Trump should use the FBI to help ICE deport all of the That's not how it works, Mike. That's not how anything at all works. The government, the federal, each bureau has a purpose. Each investigative force has a purpose, and there's money allocated for that. And they have to do those things. If you use the FBI to deport illegals, as you like to call them, or criminal illegal aliens, if they're using ICE to deport or FBI to deport them, then FBI isn't doing the things the FBI is supposed to do. That means that those things aren't getting done. Okay, I don't know whatever I didn't answer and don't want to answer, but I think I'm answering everything. And I don't think I've told any lies. No, we didn't want a powerful central government. This is a thing that you just made up. I love it when MAGAs always talk about what the Democrats want, but they never seem to care what the Democrats say about what the Democrats want. A maggot company complaining about the lack of education is peak irony. It is. Although I just mention this every once in a while, I don't like using dehumanizing words for anybody. So I don't like illegals. I think that's dehumanizing. I also think maggot is dehumanizing. Maggot is okay. Trump supporters okay, but please don't use the word maggot because I'm a equal opportunity. Don't dehumanize people. I'm hoping others that haven't fallen for this crap might read it and make them think a little more before jump. Okay, I'm hoping that you could actually think. I mean, honestly, Mike, this is just an ad hominem attack. You're not actually engaging with substance here. Do you have substance? You came up with a statistic, which I looked up because it sounded kind of suspect, and it turns out to not be true. So you got your little statistic out there, and it got debunked. And now you want people to believe you instead of what actual reality is. And somehow you want everybody to follow along with you instead of me. I'm just trying to follow what the facts are, dude. Teacher, are you giving up switching corners because they aren't allowed to teach babysitters for kids with a 90-second attention? Are you giving up? Well, teacher, are you giving up and switching careers because they aren't allowed to teach babysitters for kids? I did do. I don't think I ever did a show on this, but I did do some research on it and do a couple of whiteboard videos. There is a issue with education declining. Patsy, are you there? Can I pop you on for a second? Okay. So I have a trivia question for you. You're the person, and you might know the answer.
Okay.
What is the biggest cause for the drop in test scores in high schools? There's a really strong correlation.
The reduction of critical thinking training or screen time? Screen time?
Yes, bingo. The invention of smartphones.
Okay.
Ever since smartphones got invented, test scores have started to decline, and the more popular smartphones get, the less you have. So, and schools that have done things where they've, like taken away your phones during classes and stuff like that, have seen the test scores go back up. But that's the number one thing is
that makes sense.
Is screen time. So, I thought you would know. So, they can't even read at a high level enough to construct counter arguments or fully analyze the political dribble thrown at them by liberal teachers. Okay, give me an example. Give me an example of that. I mean, this is the irony here is really impressive. That it's you're saying that it's so hard to talk to MAGAs. They can't even read at a high level, at a level high enough to construct counter arguments or fully analyze the political dribble thrown at them by liberal teachers. So you're saying that the high school kids can't come up with a constructive argument to defeat the liberal teachers, which is an example of somebody not coming up with a substantive argument to counter a liberal argument. If that's the case, that they're not smart enough to do that, you're not smart enough to do that. All you can do is just make up something. What is your substantive argument, Nobbit? Gun sales only go up when a Democrat is elected president. Yes, they do. That's because every time a Democrat gets elected, the NRA starts talking about how the Democrats are going to steal all your guns and they're gun grabbers and all of that kind of stuff, even though no Democratic nominee for president has ever had anything in their policy about taking away anybody's guns. But Donald Trump, he was talking about things like, he shouldn't have had a gun there, and he had some stuff. Even the NRA reacted to him. Was you in a public school? Were you in a public school in Oklahoma, Alabama, Mississippi, or Arkansas? Yeah, that's another thing, is if you look at the most educated states versus the least educated states, it's like very, very, blue states tend to be much better educated than red states. More important than what? And why? And who's to say they can't read? I mean, this is all so you made an argument, you got it, you got dunked on, and now you're just coming up with nonsensical ramblings. Okay, so you're a Minnesotan, born and raised. Did you learn to read and write in school? So you're literally in the state where you're complaining that nobody knows how to read and write. 70%. New Yorkers had work and school shut down. And all of this is not instigated by liberal politicians. It's instigated by Trump. Why is he sending in, again, going back to what we were just talking about, Donald Trump sent in 3,000 ICE agents into the city of Minneapolis on the pretext that it was some kind of, going to get all those Somali illegals that were committing fraud. And they've gotten 23 Somalis, none of whom have been charged to do with anything with fraud, and none of whom we know are even here illegally. It's my other kitty, my second kitty, actually my third kitty. My first kitty is Huggy Bear. My second kitty is Resistance Kitty, and my third kitty is Rainbow Kitty. What's up, my fellow fleshy sacks of cells and various other microscopic organisms? Oh, you're so sweet. Like, I'm so flattered. I'm blushing. Today was an interesting day. Guess how much it costs to become a U.S. citizen? Can you see why they cross illegally? Oh, is there something new about that? Is there like did they have the Immigrant Express card now, where it's like $100,000 and you can get moved to the front of the line? You're not being called stupid. You're calling everybody that went out and protested stupid. You're the one calling everybody illiterate. You have been rage baiting since you've been in here. Okay. Chris, yes or no? Did I look objectively at your claim that 70% of students are graduate and high schoolers are illiterate? Did I look at your claim or not? Be honest. You can't sit there and act like I'm being cruel to you or mean to you just by looking at your argument and debunking it. How far do you think your experience in protesting is going to get you in a future job? You must be kidding. Maybe people that are protesting aren't doing it to get a job. Like everything, like it's so weird how you people are. It's like you move goalposts faster than the eye can blink. Do you think that the only things you can learn in school are things to help you get a job? That's a really shallow view of the world. And CRT, oh, CRT, we got a CRT mention. I don't know if that was a joke or what. What is the governor in Virginia trying to do? All right. The new governor? I'm assuming you meant that in a, well, oh no, it's blue collar government. So what is the governor in Virginia? All right. Let's just go back to the slideshow. All right. So we talked about the Minnesota fraud. And we showed it's like maybe 250, 350 million if you add on the other 100 million. And the guy says that it could be as much as 9 billion, but that is seriously in terms of actual confirmed fraud, it's more like 350 million. Now, in terms of actual confirmed fraud, there is not in Minnesota other fraud. There's the nationwide fraud, which has $14.6 billion. This is since the whole fraud thing in Minnesota started. And there's $14.6 billion, nearly 50 times larger than the confirmed Minnesota fraud. It involved 193 defendants, including licensed doctors, nurses, and medical professionals. These are all actual Americans with professional credentials, right? So why is it that Donald Trump isn't talking about that $15 billion? Why is it Fox News isn't talking about that $15 billion? If they're so concerned about fraud and they're sitting there and they're justifying on Fox News and that Jennings clown that's on CNN, that's about as worthless as a used piece of toilet paper. They're sitting there, they're talking about they want their money back and all of this kind of stuff. Why aren't they talking? If they're that concerned about fraud, that they're willing to go and spend tens of millions of dollars assaulting citizens and murdering citizens of the United States of America on the streets of Minneapolis, why aren't they worried about this $14.6 billion? It's nearly 50 times as much as the confirmed Minnesota fraud. And again, the word confirmed in both cases. This is actual confirmed fraud. Well, I think I might know why. Oh, I forgot to. The reason why, man, I was rushing this. The 53, I think it's 53 of the people that are convicted are in Minnesota, are in Texas. The second biggest, another 30, are in Florida. Altogether, it involves 23 different states. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that they're not talking about the red state fraud. Why are they only talking about the blue state fraud? Because it has nothing to do with fraud. The real fraud is that they're investigating fraud or that they care about fraud. You don't need to send in 3,000 ICE agents to investigate the fraud in Minnesota. Even the Somali thing that Nick Shirley lied about. You don't need to send in ICE agents. You need to send in accountants. You need to send in prosecutors, not thugs. So what have they done? No prosecution. There's no massive deployment of federal agents. Why aren't there 3,000? This is the largest ICE operation in the history of the United States that's going on in Minneapolis right now. A city that doesn't even have that many illegal immigrants. It's not even like the bastion of illegal immigrants. You got it. It's so bad. Even Ken Ham had a press conference today where he was saying that, things were being done poorly. And, he talks about, well, if they'll just agree with us to let us get the immigrants out of the prisons, then we can go back, which is what Minneapolis and Minnesota, that was already the policy. There is not a single case. And look it up. There is not one instance of ICE asking them to hold or detain a citizen and them, or hold or detain an illegal alien and them not holding or detaining them as long as the law allows. Minneapolis and Minnesota were cooperating and doing that much. There were some county prison jails, which neither Mayor Fry nor Tim Walz has any authority over. So why? Well, I think we know, right? Donald Trump said, give me your voter polls. Okay, so we've got some comment. Okay, I was listening till you destroyed your credibility with saying Shirley, well, fine, goodbye. I did not lie. Shirley did. That investigation, I've covered it. I've got like 3 different videos I've made on it, that the whiteboard videos. It is absolutely an empirical fact that every single clinic that he accused of being open was either not collecting anything. There was one that wasn't collecting any money, and the other 8 are all functioning. And that's verified by, 1, state audits where they physically go out there and do checklists, and B, independent news agencies like CBS went out there and confirmed them. What happened is Nick Shirley either went places where he wasn't allowed to go, because do you want some kid with a bunch of, that's recording, and a bunch of, people that are all running around and wearing face masks and stuff like that? And you've got a daycare center and you're supposed to just let these thugs in? Or do you want to protect your children? Again, I talked about precedent before. You've got to consider consistency. Do you want just any group of thugs to go up to a daycare center and say, let me in? Some of them, they wouldn't let them in because they shouldn't. They've got the safety of the children in mind. So some, they just didn't let them in because they shouldn't let them in. And then some, he went there when it was closed. It wasn't during business hours. So yes, absolutely, you can leave and cry about it, but I am being accurate when I say the Nick Shirley claims have been debunked. And if you were the least bit curious, you would look it up and find it out for yourself. Oh, wait, we've got a couple of start. Okay. If this country gets worse, I am genuinely about to leave for Canada. As soon as ICE gets near my community, I'm gone. Being trans, I already have a target on my back, and there are pretty. Yeah, I've been looking at where else I can move. The problem is, ironically, I don't want to be an illegal immigrant. So, you say most normal people? I say most self-centered people. What? I don't think you're the one that gets to decide what is normal. Alex Petrie and Renee Good, or Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Sorry. Like, some of us actually care about other people. And I don't, like, some of us don't think that we have to, like, be related to you or have a personal relationship with you in order to acknowledge that your validity as a human being matters. What about, didn't Donald Trump say he was going to leave the country if Biden won? Sit down. Everything pales in significance to what Trump has added to the national debt, 3.7 trillion. And that's just now, for now. What is the national deficit now? Or the national debt now? It's up to 38 trillion. How much was added in? What was the deficit? $2 trillion. Well, 1.78 trillion in 2025. So we'll see. And what was it in 2024? About the same. We'll see where it's at in 4 years. Most protesters against this authoritarian regime are working. That's the other thing. Like, why do people think that if you, just because you protest, you don't work? Like, when they protested, they didn't think that. I'm living proof of that. I've been employed for over 40 years, and I've protested in the No Kings Parade protest twice. Do your homework, Mike. Speaking of which, March 28th is the next No Kings protest. Be there if you can. If you can't, support those who are. You know, like, you can either bring food or, you know, just do things in advance of it. Check your local communities. There's usually community organizers, like on your Facebook pages or whatever. Hey, Kitty.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ways that you can support is either through helping by making signs for protesters. You can reach out to the local organizers and find out, get a copy of their wish list and procure things on their wish list. Another way is to get the word out by spending your time like door knocking or putting posters up or communicating with your friends and try and recruit people to attend. We actually are big fans of those that are unable to actually make it to events to be sharing it online, because we do a lot of live broadcasting and pictures, and a part of the inclusion is to include our digital community as well. So everybody can do something. donate a case of water. Drive by and honking your horns is really freaking supportive. So these are some of the things you can do if you can't actually make it or are feeling uncomfortable or unsafe at the event. So
I think
all right.
that's good. Like even just put some bottled water and some granola bars in your trunk and just
Yep.
pop your trunk and let people grab whatever they want. I mean,
Right.
because it takes some energy to do all that stuff. So
It does.
but yeah, protesting is like I cannot believe that we are at a point where people are like acting like protesting is un-American. I mean, and resisting protesting and saying that people shouldn't be protesting is not fascist. And so like when we are saying we're Antifa and we're against fascism and you're sitting there saying we're against protest, well, the whole, like you're only allowed to agree with me kind of thing is pretty fascist. Hey, Brett, how's it going, buddy? ICE will not be at the Super Bowl. The plug got pulled. They're going to be at their they're going to be at the alternative concert thing that nobody's going to watch. I can't wait until they announce that Lara Trump is going to perform at the alternative halftime performance. I just maybe it'll be like Kid Rock will be there and what's her name, the big butt will be there. I don't know. What's her name? The one with the big huge butt. That's like selling her soul to Donald Trump right now, and like MAGA's all acting like they somehow own the liberals. What?
It's Nicki Minaj.
That's the one.
She's a sex offender and she also owes millions in debt, I think, for taxes. I'm not 100% sure, but she's also not legal. And so she had to suck up in order to be able to keep her citizenship. And, she's a sex offender. So, like, that's his favorite.
So, wait. I just want to make sure that I clearly understand this. When they're going and they're ostensibly, destroying the city of Minneapolis, it's to find the worst of the worst, like those illegal immigrant sex offenders. And then he's like giving one house in the White House.
Yep, you got it, babe.
Hey, that just wow.
All right.
And nobody mentions this on Fox News, I assume. I mean, did you know that Nicki Minaj is taller sitting down than standing up? Took you a second. Anyway. So done are using that time to protest as their family can live in a country without the possibility. Yeah, that's all those Germans that sat around eating dinner instead of protesting. How'd that work out for them? Oh, so Trump didn't allow Noam to even say one word today at that meeting. Were you here for the ballad of Kristi Noem, Brett? Did you see that? I played the I don't know. Did you see the Marco Rubio one? The Marco Rubio one, Patsy? I've got a third one. But I played the Stephen Miller one and I played the ballad to Kristi Noem. It didn't get any didn't get any laughs in the chat, but hopefully you got some at home. Love to get out of here, but the issue is that yeah. If everybody leaves, who's gonna stay and fight? Yeah, Nick Shirley most definitely lied, and it's been proven. It's just, and that's why. How come nobody's been arrested? They've been up there for months now, and they haven't arrested a single person related to Nick Shirley's charges. Nobbit was the top person of the fraud convicted. Yeah. The what's her name? The white woman, right? All right. So, but maybe I'm going to do this one. Well, I hope somebody likes this one. This is the new one. This is the oh wait, I think I've already got. This is the Marco Rubio song. Just to introduce this one, he's got this long struggle with. He has a drinking problem, so to speak, but not in the conventional source. He doesn't seem to understand how to drink a bottle of water. And he's was like at the hearings, he kept like grabbing the bottle of water every time he was asked or answered a question. Like I don't know how he got through that thing without having to pee like 11 times. But this is like there's been several times throughout his career where he's had this issues with being able to drink water. So here is his love song to water.
The lights were bright, the cameras on. My moment came, I was so strong. Then halfway through my speech that night, I felt that feeling, throat so tight. I knew I shouldn't, I tried to wait, but there you were, you sealed my fate. I reached for you, the world went quiet. Now I'm a meme, there's no denying it. Water, oh water, I can't quit you. No matter how many times you make me a headline, every debate, every speech, every interview, you ruin my career. But I still reach for you every time. I know I should stop, I know it's wrong, but without you, baby, I can't go on. Water, my weakness, my liquid doom. I can't quit you, not even in the green room. They said, Marco, just don't drink on air. I nodded yes, but I didn't care, cause when my mouth gets dry, you know it's true, there's only one thing that will do. Poland Spring, Dasani, or Fiji in a pinch. You cost me points in every paw by several inch. My handlers beg, please, not again. But when I see you there, I give in. Water, oh water, I can't quit you. No matter how many times you make a gif out of me, every rally, every presser, every ballyhoo, you sabotage my image, but I need you desperately. Some men have scandals, some have affairs. I've got this thirst that no one shares. They laugh, they mock, they play it on repeat, but you keep me hydrated in this Florida heat. Water, oh water, I'll never quit you. Even when SNL does another sketch about us two. You're my addiction, my career's Waterloo, but I can't function without you. So here's to us, through thick and thin, through viral moments and the memes I'm in. Water, you ruined me, it's true, but baby, I can't quit you. Water, oh water, I can't quit you. Water, oh water, I can't quit you. Water, oh water, I can't quit you. Oh water, water, oh water, I can't quit you. I can't quit you.
So Christopher is very upset that he keeps getting banned. He must have, first of all, if you have multiple accounts, because you keep getting banned, I think that this is probably not the only channel that this has ever happened on. But let me explain to you that there is a difference between having a discussion and debating a sea lion. When you keep asking the same question and not hearing the answer, then it's kind of just, you're pointless. And you don't seem to, you're not worth the time and the energy, and you drain everybody in the conversation, in the chat. It's not that you disagree. It's that you refuse to engage in honest, good faith debate. When you engage in good faith debate, if somebody answers your question, then you acknowledge that answer and you move forward in the conversation. You just want to sit there and keep spinning the tires and keep everybody entrenched where you're at. Well, you know, if that's your purpose here, then go do it somewhere else. Otherwise, Kitty will make sure that you do. But, you know, if you want to actually have a debate, if you want to have conversations, we're up to that. But not to somebody just coming in and hijacking the channel. So rule number 3 is I get to ban who I want. So don't piss me off. Rawr. Zach, go melt somewhere else, Snowflake. You should try a bottle of that Flint water. Oh, man. We in Europe have contacted. So, yeah, I want to... Kitty, can you see if you can find something on that whole... the thing that Scott is talking about here? Apparently, Donald Trump has detained... some nationals there. Okay, so right here, I just found out that Trump has kidnapped 2 people from Scotland when they were ordered by a Scottish High Court to keep them in Scotland. A second internet. So they snatched them out of Scotland? Okay, so we lost. So Kitty's got to step out for a bit. Okay, I'm going to look this up. Just looking this up for you there, Euroscott. Yeah, you've only asked one thing and I answered it, and you never acknowledged it. And you just keep asking the same thing again and again and again. I'm making extra accounts to continue to comment on a person's life. Let's debacle. Okay, I think he is a number 2, but you know, you're entitled to your opinion. There's no point in debating people who think men can get pregnant. Okay. Then well, yeah, for you, I guess, probably even above your family. I'm not saying you have any. I'm sure he does. Okay. So, all right, let me share my screen here. So this is the major international incident that's unfolding right now. Here's what happened. On January 7th, 2026, U.S. Coast Guard seized a Russian-flagged Venezuelan-linked oil tanker called the Marinara in international waters between Iceland and Scotland, then brought it into the UK territorial waters, Moray Firth, Scotland. The Scottish Court of Session issued an emergency order. So this is just yesterday, prohibiting the removal of the ship's captain and first officer from Scottish jurisdiction. At 3:04 a.m., the U.S. Department of Justice emailed Scottish authorities to say they had already removed the captain and first officer from the ship and taken them onto a U.S. Coast Guard vessel, effectively defying the Scottish court order. So after they had been ordered, they did it anyway. So the Scottish lawyer says the U.S. had no lawful authority to arrest or detain individuals within Scotland. I think that that's a very fair, and this is why we have extradition treaties and why people go to countries without extradition treaties. You can't just have the U.S. military going into other countries and arresting people. This is what I was worried about when they did the whole thing with Maduro. It's not that I think Maduro is a great guy, but I think that laws actually matter. The two men were whisked away under the cover of darkness. This is an abduction, denying him their most basic human rights under our noses. I think that the word kidnapping is very apropos here. The only difference between this and a kidnapping that you're thinking of is these weren't, demanding a ransom. The UK knowingly assisted U.S. abduction of two men from Scotland. Apparently, the UK helped with this. Scottish Green co-leader Ross Greer was even more blunt. The U.S. is a rogue state, which is a fair assessment of what's going on right now. The U.S. is operating internationally outside of the law. The U.S. Embassy claims the two men were lawfully arrested for violation of U.S. law, which is fine. If they were violating U.S. law, extradite them. You cannot, you can't go into another country and arrest people for violating your laws while they're in their country. They say they're coordinating with the UK, but clearly did not respect the Scottish court order. Why this matters, this sets a precedent that the US can ignore UK court orders and remove people from the UK. Okay, so they're saying that they coordinated with the UK, but the Scottish court didn't. So that kind of contradicts what they're saying. This sets a precedent that the U.S. can ignore UK court orders and remove people from the UK jurisdiction at will. The Scottish Justice Secretary said they weren't even informed the tanker was being brought into Scottish waters in the first place. And now the U.S. has effectively violated Scottish sovereignty. It's another example of the Trump administration's might take right approach to international law. As far as I know, the U.S. this has never happened before. This whole thing, this whole notion is completely unprecedented. Let's look at some kidnap. Does this guy, I would say the guy does know the definition of it, and I would say that what Trump is doing meets the definition of it. This is why Kelly wants to ban everyone who disagrees with him. I don't want to ban everyone who disagrees with me, and I think I have pretty good critical thinking skills. Thank you very much. It was brought up U.S. military kidnapped two nationals from Scotland. Yeah, I was wanting to get the specifics, but yeah. The anti-trans stuff has no place on my channel. Doesn't need to have a Scottish name. It doesn't matter. I didn't say that people were getting dumber, Christopher. I said that test scores were going down, and they are. But that doesn't mean that they're illiterate, like you said. Are they Scottish citizens? You know, it doesn't even matter if they're Scottish citizens. The Scottish court said they couldn't arrest them. It's not about even Scottish citizens or anything. It's about U.S. sovereignty. So this is like, you know how they have, you know, like people are always in the movies, they're going to go to a non-extradition country. Well, that's why they're safe. If somebody, you know, if an American goes to, what is a non-extradition country? Okay, other countries that do this. Adolf Eichmann in the 60s. Oh, Mossad abducted a Nazi war criminal from Argentina. The UN Security Council condemned it, stating that it violated the UN Charter. China recently conducting transnational repression campaign, forcibly returning dissidents from Thailand, France, and other countries. So those are citizens that, you know, their own citizens that go to other countries and they're dissidents. Russia limited mentions of similar operations. There was the whole, I think there was Noriega. Reagan signed secretive directive authorizing CIA to kidnap people abroad for terrorism charges. DEA abducted Mexican doctor from Mexico, charges later dismissed. Manuel Noriega, when that was a whole thing that they used to justify Maduro, but even that was very different in a lot of ways. It was a false equivalence there. Extraordinary rendition program. CIA rendered at least hundreds of people during war on terror. And so the U.S. is bad about it. But the Donald Trump is doing it for just people that were on boats. They must have been like the pilots of the boats or something. They weren't even committing crimes against America. They were just driving a boat that they say had embargoed oil on it. There's no point to just like sit there and run around calling everybody pedo. German national. So, okay, doesn't matter where he's from. It's about where he is. You can't go into another country and just grab people. It's about the sovereignty of Scotland. Like, are you really not capable of thinking about these things? Like, so if somebody is an immigrant to the United States from a good place, you know, like before Elon Musk, who's an immigrant right now? Nicki Minaj. So if somebody were to come and just arrest Nicki Minaj from another country and then take her out to another country, if Canada want to come and arrest her for whatever charges, and they just sent their military into our country to arrest a person in our country, you're cool with that. Their new Second Amendment slogan, "Don't tread on me unless you cover yourself in orange," and number 6, or wear mascara. What were the comments? I don't remember. I'm looking up what Trump's statements were, but even the NRA was not thrilled with his response. Okay. You can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns. You just can't. Can you imagine if Obama had said that? Listen, you can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. When asked if Preddy was a domestic terrorist, Trump said, I haven't heard that, but certainly shouldn't have been carrying a gun. Kash Patel, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have the right to break the law and incite violence. Well, he didn't incite any violence, but I'm pretty sure that Kyle Rittenhouse did. Call Preddy an assassin and a domestic terrorist and would be and a would-be assassin who tried to murder federal agents. I guess he was going to think his bullets into people. Why the NRA and gun groups are upset. The NRA unequivocally believes that all law-abiding citizens have a right to keep and bear arms anywhere they have a legal right to be. The key facts: Preddy had a legal Minnesota concealed carry permit. Minnesota law is so permissive that licensed gun owners can even bring guns into the state capitol building. Video shows Preddy holding a cell phone, not a gun. He was helping a woman who had been pepper sprayed. An officer appears to have taken Preddy's gun from his waistband before the shooting started. He never brandished or drew the weapon. So even the NRA got upset with Trump's comments. I don't know. If you can't see the broad and clear violations of American citizens' rights, I can't help you. We have treaties which we need to be used. Yes, there are extradition treaties for a reason. Because you can't just have every country going into any other country with their military, snatching people off the street and then leaving. That's just not the way that the world works. And it's not the way the world should work. Like, it shouldn't even be it is just unfathomable to me that anybody would take the other side of that conversation. If China's government came in here and said, you broke a Chinese law, we're going to arrest you. Like, Maduro broke American laws, right? Apparently, he had never even stepped foot in America. So imagine if China had laws that they just felt like, they were to pass some kind of internet law or something where you couldn't say things on the internet, and they were to just come over here and start arresting American citizens and then renditioning them back to China. And they just sent their military in to arrest people that were breaking their laws. That is what we did. We sent our military in to arrest a citizen. I don't care about the president part or who won the election or whatever. We sent in our military to arrest a citizen of another country that had never even stepped foot in here, to bring him back to stand trial in America for breaking American laws. And some of those laws, even one of them was a gun law. I heard a rumor Orange Number 6 is a great concealer for a movie stunt squib on the ear. The thing about that is I was doing some research on that, and you have in your ear, there's like a lot of cartilage and it carries a lot of blood. And so if you get cut on your ear, it will actually bleed a lot. It does bleed a lot. But because it bleeds a lot, it also heals really fast. So I don't believe that was a conspiracy. I think I don't think he nearly died. I don't think he got hit by a bullet. I think he got like a little shrapnel grazed him or something. But that explains why it was so bloody and why it healed quickly. The ship previously known as Bella 1 was boarded south of Iceland. Yeah, so what? David, you can't even read the bill of the people. The where it was boarded is not relevant. There was a court order from another country that says you can't take these people, and they took them anyway. David, you can't even read the Bill of Rights, let alone understand it. No point in arguing with someone who wants to be persecuted. A lot of my friends want to come in and troll because they don't like your opinions, and I'm telling them not to. I'm helping you. Zemo, exactly, and brought into Scottish waters. So, Chris, is it like that you guys have these like gaggles of people that go around and trolling people that you disagree with? And so that you can disrupt their channels and the conversations that are going on in there? Why do that? Yeah. Exactly, and brought into Scottish waters. U.S. military are guests in Scotland. We have our own laws and have to be respected. It is about national sovereignty. Other countries have it too. It's like we were talking earlier about America first, and some people are like acting like every other country has to put America first too. No, you don't. You don't. Like, what is your basis in law for saying that? There was a court order saying that the U.S. could not remove them. Let it be held out in the courts, Fazimo. I don't care what your opinion is on the matter, because your opinion is really irrelevant, and so is Donald Trump's. The only person that matters opinion in this case is the judge that made the order. They know more facts about this than you do. There's a kind of something breaking about 3 hours ago. What's that, Fred? Is this the Scotland thing? Okay, 3 hours ago, officials met with Canadian separatists. British Columbia premiers alleges treason. What? Oh my goodness. If that's true, he's supporting insurrection in another country. Trump administration officials have held secret meetings with Canadian separatists from the Alberta Prosperity Project, a fringe far-right group trying to break Alberta away from Canada. The meetings, who met very, very senior Trump administration officials from the State Department, met at least 3 times since April. Jeff Rath, the group's legal counsel, said, "We're meeting very, very senior people, leaving our meetings to go directly to the Oval Office." What they want, the group is planning another meeting in February to request $500 billion in credit to prop up Alberta if an independence referendum passes. They're currently gathering signatures for a referendum petition. What was said, Rath claimed the U.S. is extremely enthusiastic about free and independent Alberta. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told a white supremacist podcaster that Alberta is a natural partner for the U.S. and the Albertans are a very independent people. Bessent added, there was a rumor a referendum will happen this year. The response, British Columbia Premier David Eby, to go to a foreign country and ask for assistance in breaking up Canada. There's an old-fashioned word for that, and that word is treason. Can you imagine if Canada were to go to Minnesota right now and say, hey, how would you like to become a part of Canada? How do you think Trump would respond to that? Alberta Federation of Labor President Gil McGowan, it doesn't feel organic. We are being targeted by the MAGA crowd, calling it foreign interference. White House response admitted meetings happened, but said no commitments were. That they're even having the meetings is insane. This is like the thing with Hillary's emails, where they met about the Russia about the Hillary email, and because no agreement was made, then it wasn't bad. I don't care what you say, whether like they did, and the only reason that we say that no agreement was made is because they say there was no agreement made. The meeting itself was illegal. That meeting with Hillary Clinton, or that meeting with Russia to get the dirt on Hillary Clinton, that was illegal all by itself. If you rob a bank and there's no money in the bank, it was still illegal to rob the bank. White House response admitted meetings happened, but said no commitments were made, and claimed they met with a number of civil society groups. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith's office, the overwhelming majority of Albertans are not interested in becoming a U.S. state. This is something any other president would be impeached within days over this. This comes amid Trump's repeated suggestions that Canada should become the 51st U.S. state. Trump has threatened 100% tariffs on Canada. He's threatening to acquire Greenland, which shares a maritime border with Canada. Recent polling shows only 3 in 10 Albertans would vote to secede from Canada. Under Canadian law, provinces cannot unilaterally secede. It would require a constitutional amendment. Canadian analysts say the U.S. is deliberately trying to destabilize Canada. The Americans are more than happy to continue to play Canadians off of each other. This is essentially the U.S. government actively supporting the breakup of its closest ally and neighbor. This is just insane. Like, every time I think that you can't get more insane, he gets more insane. I never would have even thought this was a possibility. I never said he was a Scottish citizen, dude. And it doesn't matter whether he's a Scottish citizen. Trump is a known bisexual. He has engaged in with both men and women. His favorite song is the YMCA's. Well, and don't forget about Macho Man. If you can't comprehend the books, doesn't that make you somewhat illiterate, though? No, not the way that you were using it. Illiterate means you can't read and write. And anyway. Yeah, brother, I'll subscribe and put an alert. Well, thank you for any time you spend watching. I appreciate that. It looks like I got a few new subscribers. And if you're new here, and I've got to do this more often, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Trump had ICE invade Ecuadorian consulate yesterday. What? Oh, wow. He even... That's considered like Ecuadorian country, Ecuadorian soil. I did not know that. Let me check on that one. The man has just lost all sense of other countries existing and having, like, America first is not America only. Yes, DIA. Initially, I have a cousin in the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Oh, wow. But I was always in the eyes of the DIA. As I got older, I got adopted. At least we won't see ICE at the Super Bowl. That was squashed. Not unless it's in your drink. I can't imagine during commercials the camera planning to beat downs. I didn't realize that they were trying to be there. I missed entire things here. It's hard to keep track of all the insanity. I don't even know what America first means to you. And I'm not anti-Trump. I mean, I do not define my ideology by Trump. I believe the same things I believed before Trump came along. It's weird how some people feel like everybody's worldview has to revolve around Trump because theirs does. Okay. The Scottish court didn't say that. All right, so let's go on to, he says this, Scottish court said it was fine, but according to what I just read, that's not true. All right, so let's now look at what's going on with Fulton County. So on Wednesday, January 28th, execution of a search warrant at Fulton County Election Operations Center. All physical ballots from the 2020 election were seized. Tabulator tapes from every voting machine, ballot images from the original count, and complete voter rolls. The warrant cites potential violations of laws related to defrauding voters of a fair election process and retention of election records. There's no indication of anything that there was ever any fraud by anyone. All that happened is you had to bundle the ballots and wrap them in tape, and then the tabulator tape, the poll worker that wraps the tape around there is supposed to sign it. For 350,000 ballots, the person that was supposed to sign it forgot to sign it. That does not mean that the ballots weren't voted. It's just when they count them, they wrap them in tape and put the thing around them. It doesn't change. Like if you put 100 ballots in a thing and then you wrap the tape around it and then sign the tape, there's 100 ballots there, whether you sign the name or not. I don't know how many ballots, per tape bundle or how many times the name wasn't signed or whatever. But it has absolutely no effect on how many ballots there were. And they did 2 recounts that confirmed the election results were the same. If there was some something nefarious going on with forgetting to sign the ballots, the ballot tape, then that would have been caught in the second recount and the third recount. So this is like nothing. And it's not even there's not a law that you have to sign it. It's a policy on how they do it. It's just an internal policy. So there's not even any real crime that is being alleged. And the people that were served the warrant weren't able to look at the warrant and see what the supposed crime was. So there's still no crime actually specified. This represents the Trump administration's Justice Department using federal law enforcement to investigate Trump's own baseless conspiracy theories about the 2020 election, an election he lost in Georgia by nearly 12,000 votes and has been recounted multiple times, audited by the state, investigated repeatedly with no evidence of fraud found. So, why are we still talking about this? And there was a key in there. The whole, they got the voting polls, right? That they got the voting rolls. What did they want in Minnesota? They want the voting rolls. What did they want in California? They want the voting rolls. What did they want in Georgia? The voting rolls. What do they want in Illinois? The voting rolls. They keep wanting the voting rolls. It's really important that we don't have the federal government operating the federal voting rolls. It's funny that the same people that are all against having a national registry for guns all of a sudden want a national registry for voting rolls. There's no indication that anybody committed any voter fraud. There's an indication that Trump wants to commit voter fraud. Donald Trump wants to steal the 2026 midterm elections. That's what this is all about. Well, who says it's the biggest part of their job? I mean, it's signing a piece of tape. It seems to me like a minuscule little detail, not the biggest part of their job. And it's not even a job. A lot of these people are just doing it volunteer. It's not paid. And again, it's not fraud. What is the fraud? Where is the fraud? What's being obtained by this so-called fraud? Well, I mean, you're fine with that. You're allowed that opinion. I would rather have somebody that doesn't crap his own pants. I don't even understand why they bothered to take the ballots. Any other day of the week, they would just make a statement that it was rigged and run with that. Yeah, and then there was like, for some reason, Tulsi Gabbard, who had no business at all being there, there's not a single actual reason that Tulsi Gabbard needs to be there, but she was there and she was sitting all by herself with the ballots for a couple of hours or something. And like, why? I mean, this administration has shown it does not care about the law at all. It's just operating completely outside of national law and international law at this point. It's literally killing people. And I'm not just talking about the ones in Minnesota. They are not rotten or stagnant. They are simply wrong for the sake of knowing what is wrong. Yeah, that doesn't, you see, somebody made a mistake. Yes. It's funny how you can take somebody made a mistake as a valid reason to kill somebody, but not forget to sign a piece of paper. But here's the issue. The person that signed the tape, forgetting to sign the tape, doesn't mean those people did not cast their ballots. And it doesn't mean the people whose ballots, those tapes were wrapped around, shouldn't count. They didn't do anything wrong. You can't disenfranchise 350,000 people because somebody forgot to sign a piece of tape. It's if it's fraud, but what's the fraud? What's the fraud? What's gained by doing that? What was gained? What, I mean, it's not fraud. What's the intent? It's not fraud. It's just a thing that you can yell about without having to think or process. What is the fraud, Richard? What is the fraud? Tell me, what is the fraud? How did it change the election results? He's been told by numerous courts that no fraud was found, but that's not good enough. Nope, not for him. Again, you are not accurate here, he says. Let's wait until the investigation. I am accurate. Just saying I am not accurate does not make me wrong. We are talking about it because it most likely fraud. No, you're talking about it because Donald Trump is talking about it and you're a lemming. And it is just for entertainment purposes. There is no fraud. Tell me even what the alleged fraud is. What was gained by some random person forgetting to sign their name on a piece of tape? How is there fraud? How come the two hand recounts came up with the same results, Boxer? No. Because you're acting like they will take the actual reality and accept that. What I am concerned about, Roman, is that I shouldn't have to have anything to worry about. But these people are manufacturing stuff. These people are above the law. We are going to find out what Tulsi Gabbard did to the ballots while she was sitting there all alone in the van with them. That's a weird thing to say. There were a whole bunch that had signatures on them. There are laws in blue states. I don't even know what that means. It's like saying that there are still people, if you're willing to work for aliens, demons, rogue government agencies to sabotage and undermine your fellow man, community, society, you have given away. What do they mean, Boxer? What do the signatures mean? You say they mean everything. What do they mean? You don't even know what you're talking about. All the signature meant was that bundle of ballots had the number, what was the number it was supposed to be. It's like you're just signing saying, this is 1,000 ballots. And then you sign it to confirm that's 1,000 ballots. Do you follow me? Can you think? Can you process things with this thing in your skull? All you're saying is, I confirmed this number of ballots there. So you make a mistake and you forget to sign your name. The next time when it's recounted and somebody says, yep, there's 1,000 ballots there, then that mistake is covered. Why should all those people that were in that ballot, that had their votes, their legally cast votes in that ballot, have their votes discounted because somebody forgot to sign their name? Okay, but I don't care what you believe or not, because it's not about what you believe. It's about reality existing. All right? You're sitting there telling me that Donald Trump is a genius, but that doesn't make him any more or less smart than me saying he's got dementia. All right? And it's not about Joe Biden. It is about whether or not the ballots actually exist. That is all it's about. Those ballots exist. Those ballots were counted 3 separate times. That one of those times somebody forgot to sign a name saying that this number of ballots was there does not change how many ballots were there. When you can come to me, any of you weirdos, when you can explain to me how the ballots were changed, we can have a conversation. But until then, I'm just ignoring your comments about this because they're all so stupid that they don't deserve any more conversation. I've already answered the questions. There's always, there's something going on, but it's part of the Patriot Act. I don't, that must be a different conversation. Trump is a megalomaniac, that he cannot live with the fact that he lost. That's it. It's just, and we're spending taxpayer. You're all worried about fraud, and we're spending all these millions of dollars on fraud. It's not the investigation of fraud that's the fraud. It's not the fraud that's being investigated that is the real fraud. The fraud is the investigation of the fraud. I haven't held pay for cash in 6 years. I haven't. I've handled cash, period, like a couple of times in the last 15 years. I just use my debit card. Dude, Georgia is a Republican state. All the investigations have been done by Republicans. Democrats didn't manufacture any charges against Trump. Yes, Russia. Yes, Russia interfered with the investigation, and Trump cooperated with Russia. Bitcoin is crashing? Whoa. Some laws, nobody's trying to rig the elections other than Trump. All right, we've already been through this. I'm assuming that in the second and third recounts, it would have been caught, Boxer. God doesn't want anything to do with them. Someone in the world that is super wealthy is liquidating Bitcoin, and it's going down as we speak. Really? Wow. So it started off. It's down almost $5,000 today. Over 5%. Wow. That is something here. So this is, I just looked it up. And there it is. This is the 5-day thing. You can watch it just fall off a cliff right there. Wonder if somebody's paying for a pardon. I wonder what pardon's going to get announced tomorrow, Brett. The thing is, when people talk about, and I mentioned this to Republicans and Democrats, I don't think that the 2024 election was rigged. I don't think the 2020 election was rigged. I think that people don't understand just how hard it is to rig an election. Like, people talk about, you would think that that no election is ever valid. It's really, really hard to rig an election. So this is they have this is an election. Oh, website. This is worth sharing. So the Heritage Foundation, or whatever they're called, they came out with this map that shows all the cases of voter fraud of any sort going back since 1980. Okay, so, and then where's okay, explore the data. All right. So since 1982, I'm sorry. In every single election, these, like, you look at the case types, criminal conviction, civil penalty, division programming, judicial, like any kind of voter fraud, any kind of penalty at all. And this is like including altering the vote count, ballot petition fraud, buying votes, duplicate voting, election overturned, or, well, that's like the ones that where there was actually a successful temporarily change in election, false registration, fraudulent use of absentee ballots, illegal assistance at the polls, impersonation, fraud at the polls, ineligible voting, miscellaneous, all of these things. Every single category. Then you got your subcategories, and this is every single state. And this is not just like federal elections or something like that. Most of these, if you start going through the data, which I fell down that rabbit hole one time, you know, like there's national elections and local elections and stuff, like, you know. And some of these, you know, like they're multiple things lumped together. But anyway, so this is like school board elections, city council elections, primary elections, anybody at all that has been busted for any kind of voter fraud for anything at all in the last 43 years, and there's 1,620. So 1,620 over 43, so that's about 38 per year. And there are, I don't know how many, when you start looking at all that, there's got to be over 1 billion votes, right? Just how many votes have been cast since 19 whatever. And then let's look here at the ones that let's look at the one election overturned. So there are, you've got 10, okay, a sheriff runoff election in 2023, a Compton city council race. And it's like, if you look at some of the details of this, you know, it's like, judge overturned the results in the 2020 Eatonville Town Council seat 4 election after finding that the votes had been improperly cast. It was like 262 to 253. After counting provisional ballots, the vote tally was 262 for Daniels and 261 for Mack, leaving a margin of 1 vote. Following a recount, 2 additional uncounted votes were discovered for both for Mack, leading him to be declared the winner. During a bench trial, evidence was presented that one of the 2 discovered ballots was not cast by the alleged voter, and that another voter was coerced by Mayor Anthony Grant, who was convicted of voter fraud in an unrelated case, to vote for Mack, by suggesting that he would forgive overdue rental payments and not evict the voter if he voted for Mack. The judge ruled that 2 of those votes should have been excluded from the vote tally and declared Daniels to be the winner of the election of the Eatonville Town City Council seat 4 position. So, you know, these are, you have a few cases where these are, you know, local elections that are like city council or whatever, where 1 or 2 votes might make a difference occasionally. But this is, if you go back, and so each of these, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in the last 42 years, in all the elections combined, there have been 30 where the person changed. And The last one was a 2023 Caddo Parish Sheriff runoff election in Louisiana. So, you know, if you go down here and you look at Louisiana, California, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, West Virginia, California, Indiana, Alabama, Indiana, California, Florida, Pennsylvania, California, Florida. So out of all of them, mostly are red states. If you notice, there's a few Californias and a bunch of red states. And since California involves like 1/5 of the population of the country, I would expect California to pop up there every once in a while. Anyway, my whole point in this diatribe is that we act like voting illegally is this thing that's really easy to do. It's actually really hard to do. The penalty is really bad, and the reward is not very, you know, you're almost never going to have it pay off. So, like we are all elections rigged. No, they're not all rigged. They're extremely hard to rig. When you're, especially if you're talking about a presidential election or something, because you got to think about what you have to do to rig an election. It's every single voting machine is air gapped. That means you can't access it from the internet and you can't access it from Skylink. And then you have a Republican and a Democrat work at the, watching the ballots be tabulated. A lot of states, you even have them monitored, like publicly monitored. You can go and watch people count the votes. If you're going to try and steal an election by in-person voting, then you have to wait in line for hours sometimes just to vote once. To vote a second time, you have to go somewhere else and wait hours to get a second vote. Like, it's not like you're going to be able to do that enough times to change the outcome of even a precinct, much less a city or a state or a country. It's just insane to and then, how are you, what are you going to do? Rig a voting machine? How are you going to do that? Most of them you have, like a runoff or a printout. It's just silliness. It's easy to just say, there aren't enough people that disagree with me. I can't be in the minority. So it must have been stolen. 2020 was not stolen. 2024 was not stolen. Elections are really, really hard to steal, and that's why it hardly ever happens. This study that I was just pointing to was Heritage Foundation trying to prove how easy it is to commit voter fraud. And what they have done instead is prove how hard it is. 30 instances, and all of them just like local races. I don't see anything beyond I don't see here anything that's more than okay, Georgia's 28th House District. That's probably the biggest one on here. This is Georgia's 28th House District, not the House of Representatives, but the Georgia 28th House. Because out-of-district voters submitted ballots. Some voters moved out of the district between the first and second runoff elections. And there was at least one instance of duplicate voting, though individuals were not prosecuted. This northeastern Georgia district faced 3 elections in the same year between the same Republican candidates. No Democrats ran. In the end, the incumbent lost to challenger Chris Horn. That's kind of funny. Because I bet some people were like, see, oh, it's Georgia. And then it turned out that the whole thing was there was no fraud and just apparently confusion in having so many elections in the same year. Anyway, I think you get my point. It's not easy to steal an election. I still cannot condone Gavin Newsom's policies, but I don't run in California. I like the state and wanted to live there. I give it a honest effort, and then they had a better plan. Depends on what you're talking about since I just jumped in. Mail-in ballots need a signed envelope where the signature matches the signature on the ballot. Yeah. No, I mean every state sets its own and policies and stuff, but sometimes there's problems with the signature on the like what there's something called curing a ballot, where if you're, I don't know how old you are. I'm 58. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little arthritic. So I don't sign my name the same way I did 15 years ago, even. I just can't. My finger muscles just don't work the same way or whatever. I just can't write the same. And so my signature still looks kind of the same, but it looks a little different. So I don't know and I don't even remember and then the other thing is I have two ways of signing my name. Like not everybody signs their name the same way every single time. I've got my, this is a contract signature where I try to sign it really slow and carefully. And then I've got my, the waiter just brought me the receipt and that's over my credit card and I just do my little scribble signature. I don't know if you do that. A lot of people do that. And so not everybody signs their name the same way every time either. That's the problem with the envelope signatures, is sometimes you can have a high fail rate. So what a lot of states do now is they allow curing, which means if you don't pass the signature, then you are allowed to come in and cure your ballot and confirm, show your ID like you would if you were actually there and voting, and you can show your ID and then have your ballot confirmed. Which I think is a fair way to do it. Some states don't do that. And it tends to be blue states allow curing, red states don't. What's interesting in Pennsylvania in 2020 is Pennsylvania left it to the precincts and the counties. I think it was to the counties. And the governor, who I believe was Republican, said he would leave it to the counties still because there was, 2020, because there was this whole pandemic thing. And, a lot of Republicans like to ignore that there were adjustments made because of the pandemic. And so blue counties allowed curing, and then red counties didn't allow curing for the most part. And so then when one of the cases for the lawsuit was these people that were in the red counties sued the state, saying it wasn't fair that they weren't allowed to cure their ballots, but the people in the blue states were. And first of all, the people that were suing, there's no evidence that their ballots, they weren't even affected. Their ballots weren't, up in the, their ballots were signed, their ballots were counted. But the judge ended up ruling, well, the state didn't say that. If the state had said in red counties you can't cure your ballot, in blue states you can, that would be fine. But the counties themselves made that decision. So then the ruling was, you can't blame the state for what the county decision was. But oh, you're talking about and as far as the signature goes, I'm sorry. The signature I was talking about was the signature that went on the ballots in Georgia, where when they would count out a bundle of ballots and it'd be this is 1,000 ballots, they put the tape around it to denote that it's 1,000 ballots, and then you have to sign your name to show that it's 1,000 ballots. Somebody forgot to sign their name sometimes, and so then there were 350,000 ballots that had the tape that wasn't the tabulation tape that didn't have signatures on it. It doesn't mean the ballots weren't there. It just means that they didn't put their signature on the thing. And if there were mistakes or any kind of fraud involved in that, then it would have been caught in the recounts. Trump is trying to, except he is. He keeps trying to go and get everybody's voting polls. Do you think that everybody would have been cool with Obama getting or with Biden getting the voting polls in 2024? Mm, 20 million votes didn't go anywhere. There is zero evidence that any Democrat ever rigged any elections. All right. Typing this from your Grindr account. All right, so just scrolling down a little bit. I think people do support the progressive agenda. If you look at, most of the things on most policies, people actually tend to agree with the liberals. There is no Minnesota daycare scandal. There's other Minnesota scandals that were prosecuted. The Minnesota daycare scandal has just been debunked. Anyway, you're a conspiracy theorist nut job. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on you. Have you heard of the organizing? Have you heard of the Organizing Election Truth Alliance? They are doing a lot of in-depth investigations. I can look at it, but I'll Google it and see what I can find. I don't think I have no idea what she did or what you think is commie. Oh, remember, Elon was very involved. He knew he'd be convicted if Trump had won. Trump, yeah, Elon was an illegal alien at one time. Did you know that? I'll look at the Election Truth Alliance. I just, in general, like I said, it's voting fraud is really, really hard to do. It is very low reward and very high risk. Like your chances of succeeding are almost zero. And your chances of going to jail if you get caught are extremely high. Hey there. Welcome home, Kitty. I was going to say, your presence is welcome. Yeah, there is no evidence, which is why all you can say is, like the little sarcasm font thing and stuff like. You can't present any evidence to me that actually exists. All you can do is just present snark as evidence. And the lack of evidence is all the evidence I need. There is not a single example of any kind of voter fraud that would even change one precinct, much less one state, much less the entire election. It's just a bunch of whiny little mealy-mouthed MAGA morons that can't seem to absorb the fact that people just didn't want to vote for Trump in 2020. And as far as the difference in number of votes, it's because when you can vote easier, more people vote. That's just a static law of all elections, not a law like a law Congress passes, but a law like this is a law of gravity or whatever. It's just a reality. When you make it easier for people to vote, more people vote because it is easier. Not vote illegally, just vote, period. I think every single state should just have every registered voter gets mailed their ballot. And then you fill it out and send it back in. Why does it have to be so complicated? I mean, sure, prove you are who you are. You can find all kinds of ways to do that. We do two-factor authorization and stuff all the time. I'm sure with all the brilliant tech heads advising Trump, somebody could figure out a way to make sure that this is ironclad. and it's not like there's that much voter fraud that's mail-in voter fraud either. Here, let me see if this. Let me. Yeah, so that. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have a subcategory for. This is another one. This is all alien, all immigrants, that whether they're illegal immigrants or not. And it's only 100 cases of instances of non-citizens voting, period, from 1982 to 2025 in all elections. And what else is interesting is if you go and you look at the details of this, as I have, there's not one instance of an illegal alien voting illegally that would have been prevented by things like the SAVE Act or voter ID, because they all had their own fake IDs. That's how they went and voted. Does anyone else think that the position of president should be done away with? I think you need to have somebody in charge, but I think I've been wanting to do it for a while. Maybe I need to do that one next week. But I think that there has been a slow, methodical usurpation of the First Amendment powers by the Article 1 powers by the president. The president has become has taken over so much of what Congress does, and that's in large part because of what Congress has not been able to play nicely together. They no longer try to work together. And from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, pretty much almost the entire time, there was like a few years gap, one or the other, but both houses of Congress were run by the Democrats, and the White House was occupied by the Republicans, like from Roosevelt all the way up through Bush. It was, both houses were Democrat. I think there was like a 2-year gap where Republicans had the Senate, and there was like a 4-year gap where Jimmy Carter was president. But other than that, it was just Republicans had the White House and Democrats had the Congress. And so it was almost like required. The government, in order to run it all, had to like work together and negotiate with each other. And now we've gotten to where nobody, the Congress is behaving differently because they're so worried about the next election and the president getting credit for anything when it's the other guy that, and the Democrats, it's this way, and with the Republicans, it's this way. So they'll just block everything that comes through. And nobody tries to work anything out. That's why we don't have any immigration bill. Even though everybody will tell you, going back 30 years, we need immigration reform is one of the most important things on the menu. Republicans believe it, Democrats believe it, but nobody can get anything done because Democrats can't, or because Congress can't work together. And so the changes that have been made have been by executive order. And that's true with whether you're talking about with Clinton, whether you're talking about with Obama, with Bush, with Trump, and even with Biden. They've all just, whatever changes have been made have been not through the legal process, but through the presidential process. And that's why they're all just, none of them are stick. Like the asylum laws. Republicans want to complain about Joe Biden enforcing the asylum laws, but they are asylum laws. And Donald Trump has just decided all by himself that they don't exist anymore. Obama wanted to get DACA approved through Congress. Congress wouldn't do it. So Obama did it by executive order. So whichever side you're talking on, both sides are guilty of the same thing. The president asked for something, the Congress refuses to work on it. Biden had an immigration bill that the Republican Congress refused to work with. And plus, the other side of that is the rise of the filibuster. There have been more filibusters since Obama was president than there were in the history of the country, and combined. And in fact, there were more filibusters under Obama than there were filibusters before Obama. So the thing about that, like, there's just become Congress refuses to cooperate with each other, and so then nothing gets done unless the president runs everything by executive order. And so then what you have is you have a president that more and more decides what tariffs are, decides when we go to war. We've got the whole War Powers Act that has just been completely turned upside down. It was meant to prevent the president from acting unilaterally on war. And instead, it's been used as tacit permission. Okay. So that didn't change. I don't know what. Oh, so Philadelphia. I don't know what that's related to, Moose. But it's not nonsense. And before Trump, there were tons of politicians from all parties trying to call it out. No, I'm not going to engage in this. Boy, both kitties came back at the same time. Today's big announcement was more or less criminalizing drug addiction under the mass prevention and a rescheduling on cannabis. I haven't. What is that about, Kitty? Can you post, or do you have a link already? So this is what the one dude was talking about. Let me. Kitty's got me. Okay, so expelled former Democratic Congressman Michael Ozzie Myers has been sentenced to 30 months in prison for federal election fraud dating back to 2014. The Justice Department said Tuesday and was immediately taken into custody. Myers pleaded guilty in June to conspiracy to deprive voters of civil rights, blah, 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 blah. So he was voting illegally. Oh, prosecutors said some of the candidates were running to be judges and hired Myers, who would use portions of consulting fees. So he was expelled from Congress in 1980. Served time in prison after taking bribes from an undercover officer. Okay. So he's already did. Let me find out a question here. But this kind of also just proves my point that, you know, it's high risk, low reward, right? What what did he get out of this? He gets to die in jail. Wow, you have been sorry, I'm just sitting here reading to myself and forgot I was doing a show for a second. All right, so let's go back over here. The fraud, Michael, expelled after Abscam. Oh, this is going back to the Abscam bribery in the 80s. The scheme, Myers worked as a political consultant for judicial and other candidates. He bribed elections. Number of fraudulent votes added 2014, 27, 2015, 40, and 2016, 46. Did they change any elections? No. When U.S. Attorney William McSwain announced the initial charges in 2020, he did not say whether the alleged vote tampering. Okay. So this kind of like proves my point, right? He ended up in jail. He didn't change anything. Somebody's trying to point, you know, like because he was a Democrat in 1980, somehow trying to make it seem like the Democrats are like all pro fraud or whatever. But this is, you know, guy tried to commit fraud. He got busted and now he's going to jail. Fine. I'm not saying nobody tries. I'm just saying that, you know, succeeding is extremely rare. And that in the, like I said, there's been over 1,000 cases in 43 years. There's been over 1,000 cases. And they have not gone well. Okay. No, King's date is March 28th. Okay. All right. So this is the other thing that Kitty's bringing up is there's this, boy, this is like live news with Kelly right now. I like 3 different things have broken since I started the podcast today. So where'd that go? So Kitty is summarizing this as saying, all right, so saying that basically drug addiction is illegal now. Here's a clear summary of President Trump's executive actions related to drug addiction and substance abuse. I wonder if Bobby Kennedy has weighed in on this. President Trump, I wonder if Donald Trump Jr. is going to be affected by this.
He was in there with him while he signed this. He was all about it. Freaking loved it. They're trying to spout it as this big positive thing for drug addiction when really it's not. It's another way they're going to weaponize putting dissents in jail.
Yeah, well,
creating some slave labor.
They need to fill those jails that they're building for illegal immigrants. President Trump recently signed an executive order described as coordinating a national response to drug addiction and substance abuse, called it the Great American Recovery Initiative. It directs federal agencies to work together on prevention, treatment, and recovery programs for people struggling with addiction. Didn't Joe Biden already do that? Like he brought down overdoses like 25% in his last year. The goal is to create a whole of government push improving access to treatment and support while aligning federal resources to address substance use disorders. Okay, I've got to say, just reading through all this and not knowing what the details are, I don't have any problem with any of that. Ending crime and disorder. This might be the part where you're talking about. This EO included drug-related directives aimed at shifting federal funding and policy on drug addictions, redirect substance use prevention and treatment grants towards programs the administration considers evidence-based. So how are they going to be like this right here? Directs federal agencies to work together on prevention, and then redirect substance abuse prevention and treatment of grants towards program. That seems to be an outright conflict right there. Anyway, I think of the little meme thing where the guy's trying to put the square pegs in the round holes, the little troll guy. Excludes federal grants for harm reduction strategies. So clarify for me, does the federal, are federal grants for harm reduction strategies being excluded, or are
They're getting rid of them.
they're getting, so
You
this is
cannot use harm reduction techniques, because harm reduction techniques are things like clean needles. So, and
like
no,
supervised
and Narcan.
and Narcan.
That type
Critics
of
say it
thing.
undermines established public health harm. Yeah, that. Oh, there's fentanyl designated as a weapon of mass.
It's getting better.
Why? Why do we have to have stupid people running our country? Trump signed an EO declaring illicitly manufactured fentanyl and key precursor chemicals as weapons of mass destruction. That's not what weapons of mass destruction means. They think by declaring things, they become those things. You know that old joke? Can you make me a that old joke? Oh, sorry. That old joke, hey, can you make me a milkshake? And okay, poof, you're a milkshake. That's what poof, you're a terrorist organization. Poof. You're a weapon of mass destruction. Fentanyl is not a weapon. What are you going to throw it at people? This escalates how the government treats fentanyl trafficking, mobilizing national security tools for criminal charges, and instructs the Attorney General and other departments to pursue more aggressive legal and enforcement actions against supply and trafficking. Except it's not a weapon. Although not strictly marijuana rescheduling order, although not strictly about addiction treatment, Trump also signed an EO reclassifying marijuana from the strictest federal control category, Schedule 1, to a category recognizing some medical use. This is aimed at easing research barriers and expanding potential medical applications. It doesn't legalize recreational use, but changes how the federal government regulates cannabis. Honestly, it just needs to be legalized. What these EOs do, big picture, Great American Recovery Initiative, coordinates federal response to drug addiction prevention, funds only certain addiction programs and bars federal support for harm reduction sites, treats fentanyl trafficking as a national security threat. That's not going to, I don't know how he thinks that is going to help anybody. And I mean, isn't the last time I checked, isn't RFK Jr. a heroin addict? Oh, so these are your big. Anyway, well, that's horrible. Hardcore conservative. I'm sorry. I just heard the words hardcore conservative and thought, well, there's an oxymoron. Unless you're Donald Trump. You know what I mean? You know, because he was with the porn star. So he was a hardcore. Well, depends on, I guess, if they filmed it. So, yeah, Donald Trump repealed all of Biden's. Oh, wow. Yes. Oh, I got, what happened? Thank you, Greg. Democrat. Oh, I forgot to finish reading your comment. Said there was nothing in any state. Oh, in terms of voter fraud. I mean, it happens very rarely, mostly at the local level. These elections that the one guy was pointing out, I think it sounds like they were all local too. Democrats hate Americans. What is the point of that comment? You know how Trump is so against the protests in Minnesota? Didn't he literally tell people to riot after the 2020 election? That's right. Let's we're not rioting, Donald. We're fighting like hell because otherwise we won't have a country anymore. My point is that if you deny that something is happening just because Trump is no, Moses, that's not what I'm saying. Or Moose, I'm sorry. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying it is not happening in any significant proportion to change elections. And I'm not saying it just because Trump says it's happening, because I'm also saying it's not true that Trump stole the election. I'm not just having it one way or the other. I am saying that there is very, very, and as I went and showed you, very, very few cases where people have overturned elections, especially any elections of consequence, by vote stealing. And when you look at out of the billions of votes cast over the last 43 years, and you're talking, that database includes mayor elections, city council elections, school board elections, primary elections. Basically, every single election in the entire country in the last 43 years. Okay, so let me just let me check. Okay, how many votes have been cast for president since 1982? I'm just gonna look this up. Like out of 2,000, or out of the number of total votes that have been cast. Let me check something here. You've got to look at the numerator and the numerator and the denominator, right? The top number and the little number, and the bottom number. So just for president, which isn't even the majority of the votes, right? Just for president, there's been 1.32 billion votes cast since 1982. That's not counting the primaries for those either. So let's say just when you factor in the primaries, when you factor all the congressional votes and all the city council votes and all of that kind of stuff, then let's say it's 2.5 billion. Like let's say it's double that and then round down. All right, so we have a total of 1,620 cases of voter fraud, period, out of 2 billion. All right, so out of the, so that's 0.00081% of the votes over 43 years in every kind of election. So I stand by my assessment that voter fraud is extremely rare. And it's very unlikely to overturn an election. Only 10 elections were changed, and they were caught. Real American Lemmy, and some of those are like not fraud; those are just elections. Some of them were mistakes, like the one that I read about. Real American. Also, if he calls storming the Capitol, which caused property damage, a peaceful protest, then the Minnesota's protesting or nothing. I mean, it's so weird how people can call January 6th a peaceful protest and then asking a woman, "Are you okay?" while you're trying to help her up is like domestic terrorism. Are we seriously going back to January 6th now? That was a sham in the first place. Trump should, yeah, because we're talking about Georgia and blah, blah, blah. Trump should never have brought those people up there, and even the QAnon shaman guy doesn't support him anymore. That's the actually pretty funny part. You know, when you've lost the QAnon shaman vote, there is nothing that they do for the well-being of our people. It seems to me that their intent is to cause our at least allow the most people to die. Survival of the richest philosophy. What are those things called? Yeah. We're seriously going back to that BS. Well, now it's officially a weapon of mass destruction. Even though Venezuela still doesn't have it, they're still not on the. It's still not on the boats. Like he's more concerned with seeming like a tough guy than he is about actually saving lives of people. I hear you. I mean, I'm bad enough I can make my own mistakes. Thank you very much. I'm very good at typos. You know what kind of what is a Donald, well, what is a dyslexic vampire's favorite blood type? Type O. You like that one? I had to like look at Kitty there to see if that was a good one. Minnesota is just doing the same thing. Autocorrect has a fun sense of humor. There was a joke about the autocorrect guy dying, but I can't, like, it was like his obituary and there were all these autocorrect errors that were there. An oligarchy. That's what an oligarchy is. I think they're gonna what are they called, those they're like these. There's a whole other level that the oligarchs, the ultra wealthy are trying to do, where they're like buying these islands and whatnot, and they're making them independent nations that you can buy citizenship to, that it's like $1 million, and then they only have like 0.5% income tax, but they'll have like half the population will be, or they'll have these private militaries and zero trafficking laws, so they can traffic for cartels and do all of this kind of stuff. And Peter Thiel's got one in Hungary, and that's the guy he pardoned, Juan Orlando Hernandez. He's the one that helped set this up from the Hungary end, where they're like giving them these land to do it, and Peter Thiel is the one that bought the land. Anyway, there's gonna be a whole bunch of crazy stuff, because the guy that Trump wanted to win, and the guy Trump wanted to win is the guy Peter Thiel wanted to win, is like killing the last chance to stop this. So it's just going to become a tax dodge, and they're going to just have their own countries where they can go and do whatever they want to do. Probably Epstein would have lived there, and they would have had like their little sex trafficked little girls there. And anyway, well, I'm trying to remember what they're called. See if Zeeds. That's what I'm looking for. That's the word. They're called Zeeds. Zeds. At least the ones in Hungary are. Anyway, should check that. Like, you should look into that. It's pretty frightening. You like mine? I like that one. You know how to study for a blood test? You just have to be positive. Patsy's there. Enough of these bloody puns. Never mind. See, bloody puns. So, all right. Looks like we have come to an end, my friends. So we'll just one last reminder. What is the most important thing everybody needs to take away from the show today, Dr. Patsy?
Vote. Go vote. Call your senators. Tell them to dissolve ICE. And make sure that you go to the March 28th No Kings, right?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay.
We need to
mutual aid. Not
we've got to
politicians.
Right, like I was saying last time, and we need it more now even than then. Too big to jail.
Too big to jail.
Too big to jail. Remember Too Big to Fail? That's what they said. That's why they couldn't prosecute those people. Well, now we need to be too big to jail. We need to have so many people out there that even 3,000 ICE agents can't stop us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So. All right, guys. Thanks again for watching. And if you haven't already punched that subscribe button, go ahead and do it now. I will talk to you tomorrow.